think so.
Okay.
Hell, this is like,
Motion to come out of recess, calling the meeting to order. Do we have a motion?
so moved.
Moved by Drews, second by Roskinet. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. First is Extension Advisory Board. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thanks for the opportunity to come and present to you this morning on our budget. First, I guess I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Matt Odden, President of the Pennington County Extension Advisory Board. I think all of you, and I appreciate you taking the time to listen to us this morning.
Matt,
yes.
Hold on just a sec. Guys, Holly, we have everybody in our books under outside sources?
No, you're under the extension tab.
Okay.
They're first this morning.
I've seen people with no books open, including me, so. Sorry, Matt.
No problem.
Give us just a second so we're all on
Absolutely.
the same page. Sometimes I forget to do that, but. So it's under extension in your book?
Gotcha.
All right.
Got it.
Thank you, Matt. I
All right,
appreciate
you
it.
bet. So I'd like to introduce, we've got just one of the other advisory board members here this morning. Patty Brunner is here. Joyce Bowman, Dallas Voss, and Alan Van Bukove aren't able to be here this morning. And then Commissioner DeSanto also sits on our board, and we certainly appreciate his guidance through the process. I also want to introduce Regina Bakley. She's our newest extension youth program advisor. She started just a couple weeks ago, so she's just getting right into this, and we're glad that she's able to be here now. We were really fortunate to get her hired and on board. So
Welcome.
Look forward.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Jane Amiot is gone at a training, and then Kim Suko, our staff assistant, is here as well. So we've also got a handful of 4-H members and 4-H enthusiasts in the audience that I want to say thank you to them for attending this morning. Through 4-H, one of the things that we ask 4-H members to do is attend some kind of a county government meeting. And so just to learn the process, learn more about it, and learn how our country is really run. So that's
Nice.
that's certainly something we encourage, and we're glad that they're able to be here this morning. So our Extension Advisory Board, just to provide a little background, it provides we work in conjunction with our SDSU Extension Youth Program Advisors to provide guidance on the budget and on the programming throughout the county. This year, we have over 408 4-H club members enrolled currently in 22 4-H clubs and special emphasis groups throughout the county. Additionally, Pennington County 4-H has reached 650 youth through school enrichment programs throughout the county. To help carry out our 4-H programs, we have over 75 background checked and approved 4-H volunteers that help to provide our events, carry out our mission, and they're required to do a minimum of 3 hours of training every year. Through those volunteers, they average about 5 hours a week, which equates to about $400,000 of value to Pennington County. A study by Tufts University found that the benefits of being in 4-H programs are really immense. When compared to their peers, youth who are involved in 4-H programming are 4 times more likely to make contributions to their communities, 2 times more likely to be civically active, as you can see by having a few 4-H members here in our presence, 2 times more likely to participate in science programs during out-of-school time, and 2 times more likely to make healthier choices. For our 2020 budget, our Extension Advisory Board worked to follow the guidelines that were set forth by the county. And we believe that we have prepared and are presenting a fiscally conservative yet realistic budget that's based on our existing services, our programs, and our current employee counts. Our total 2020 budget request comes in a little bit lower than our approved 2019 budget at $88,646, about a $99 difference. At this time, I'd like to ask Kim Suko to come forward to help review some of the major changes on our budget.
Good morning, everybody. So the first one that has a slight change is the full-time salary, which would be my salary. For 2020, the staff assistant will receive a step increase in January, resulting in a $17.19 per hour. There's also a merit-based increase that may be awarded in May of 2020, and we also took that into account in case that happens. And that totals then the $36,351. So both of those increases are in that number. For the group insurance, life insurance is the only part that I claim out of that. And so the total was calculated based on just the first few months of 2019 because that's all we had to go on. And so then we were instructed that the health and dental were to become, if it were to become needed, that I needed to take those, like such as in the middle of 2020, the administrative assistant there would be funds elsewhere for this. So we did not budget that into this. So that was a great change right there.
Ms. Kim, also if you would explain how the budget, where the money comes from 4-H, because doesn't the state contribute?
Yep, and I can certainly speak to that. So yes, the state contributes to one of the full-time program advisors and half of the salary and all of the benefits for the second full-time program advisor.
Thank you.
Yep.
Just so we have new commissioners so they know
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. Yeah, otherwise the budget would be much larger.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Right, so this salary that I was speaking of is just strictly mine, and then the MOU with the university did not change this year, so I wasn't addressing that, but that's what Matt was speaking of with the split between the county and SDSU. The other change is with membership dues or the professional fees. This would be under professional services and fees. This line is lowered to 200 based on spending in 2018. So we brought that down a little bit. Our shredding decreased by $50 as well because we based that on 2018. Our software, we're trying to replace one computer every year, and with the costs of replacing the computer so that Regina would have a new one this year was a little more than what we had been budgeting in the past. So we increased that by 100 to cover costs of the software. And again, that was based off of what we spent in 2018. The training registration had gone up quite a bit in 2018, so we increased that by $1,700 to keep on to tabs with that. And we also suspected with Regina coming on board that we would have more training for her to be going for spending there. The equipment rentals, nothing had been spent in 2018, so we zeroed out that account and took away that money. Maintenance agreements is our copy machine with Evergreen, and that had gone up throughout 2018, so we increased it by $200. The miscellaneous supplies, which would be under total supplies accounts, had increased by quite a bit, so we increased that based on 2018 by $2,426.
Kim? I'm missing the numbers.
Yeah, I'm not following the numbers
got-
at all.
Your numbers aren't matching our paper, ma'am.
Oh, I think that's because of, this would be less detailed, I guess, than our full budget.
Right.
So
So,
this is what,
so some of these are
unless-
gonna be summarized together on this sheet for
Okay,
what,
do you wanna
there's gonna
see
be
what-
some of these items that would be,
want to see what we have?
I have it. Yep.
Yeah.
I have it here.
Okay,
So,
so
so
we're
the
not,
membership dues, the shredding, the software, the training registration, the equipment rentals and maintenance agreements are all under the professional services and fees.
Okay.
So all of those things make up that $2,551 difference.
Okay.
okay, sorry.
No, that's
We
all
were,
right.
I was like,
I
okay,
thought
I'm not
when I
reading
was,
these down.
when I was putting this together, I thought that was gonna be confusing. So then under the total supplies account, yeah, for 426, the supplies, we have a line item for miscellaneous supplies that takes care of 2,426 of that $5,000 change. And then another part of that change is our postage. In 2018, part of that 2018 and part of 2019, without having that second advisor, we didn't get some of the mailings out that we normally do, so we got ahead on postage. So we lowered that for 2020 to just $176, so that's another part of the change in supplies.
So just one more question. Did you guys put in what the state gives you anywhere in your book, in your papers?
no, no, that's not in here.
Okay,
Because that, I guess that's not in the request, so no.
okay. It'd be nice when, usually when Matt did his presentation, he kind of showed us and told us what was happening with
Sure.
that. I mean, not, for me, this is a great program. It's not gonna make or break in a sense, but, because I know what's happening, but for the future, so
Sure.
other commissioners that are new, they can see that breakout and that this isn't just the county, this is, you're getting state money in order. And I think it's a good thing to show that.
So on a normal year, it's a little over $19,000 that SDSU gives us for salaries. And this year, it worked out to be about $14,000 just because we were without a person from December to June. So,
Wait a minute, that's just for one position though.
Yep.
So that just covers the one position,
Yep,
yes.
right.
the half,
The half.
right? Oh, yeah, they didn't, yeah.
So then there's the additional.
That's what we pay, not the other way around.
Right.
I just said that
Yes.
backwards.
But you see what I'm saying?
Yes,
You're good because this is what we pay, but it's always nice to see how that all comes together, and that other people are putting into this entity that believe, what you guys are doing is very positive, so.
Very good.
Sorry, Miss Kim.
no, that's all right. So then within that supplies of that $5,000 change, we also have program supplies in there, which Jane uses a lot of that to go to the schools and do her projects and crafts with the kids. And we went over budget in 2018, so we increased that by $3,000 so that there would be more money there to use. We also use that for workshops with our 4-H clubs in the office too. So Regina will be able to spend some of that as well. And then moving on to the travel and conference category, there was a total $350 change there. So we raised the mileage for the employee advisors, so the mileage for the state car, they have a state car to drive, was increased by $300 based on the 2018 driving. Jane drives that every day during the school year, so that adds up. And then the mileage for the assistant or myself, we increased by $50. And so that, and then the travel for the state events, we did not change.
Okay.
So that should be all of that $350 was the $300 to mileage for the advisor and $50 for the mileage to the assistant.
Thank you, Kim. Does anybody have any questions for Kim through this budget? That's how we usually we appreciate you detailing it, but usually you have questions because they've looked ahead to see if they.
You bet.
I think it would be helpful if you got us a copy of the breakdown that you,
Sure.
I have one obviously that you
Yep.
emailed to me, but go ahead and get one to the rest of the
Okay.
You bet.
board.
Yeah, I've
Or
got it.
does anybody have any questions for Kim or Matt?
I don't have any question, just a comment. I think last year they came back, same thing as this. I mean, you guys are right on budget, or it's been lower, and I think the board does a good job of seeing what's going on and balancing the budget and so forth. And so I appreciate that. And I also, on his comment when he talked about getting the civic involvement of the youth, you guys have done a good job of that. I know Gary and I have both sat through some of the speech contests, and I'm really set back on how you get the youth involved, and I think it is a good program. I wish I could speak as well as some of those that we watch.
Thank you. I also have a comment same as Commissioner LaCroix. Basically, healthier choices is a good way to say that. Basically, these are diversion programs for 88,000 of this county's money, and how much do we spend on the other side? So I've always said that every year, being on some of the diversion program through the state and otherwise, and then watching what you guys do. Matt, you said it right, healthier choices. I was in programs like this when I was younger, and it makes a huge difference. And it gives you goals. And
Yep.
it also shows you what you kind of like for your hobbies and stuff. So it takes your career into different areas, and then you get to experience stuff you otherwise wouldn't as a youth. So we appreciate everything you guys do.
Right.
Thank you.
Indeed.
Any
Thank you very
comments
much.
from you guys? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next, we'll do the mandated, if that's okay, requests, behavior management systems. All right. Ms. Terry Corrigan?
I didn't think that.
Thank you, ma'am. And that is in your other?
Outside organizational tab.
Give us just a sec, Ms. Terry.
Sure, no problem.
Okay, that way we're all on the same page. So Ron, she's under outside organizations.
Dark blue tab, there we go.
All right. And this is behavior management. There's enough of your stuff there. Sorry, Gary. Everybody ready? Okay. Ms. Gary?
All right. Good morning. Thank
Gary?
you. Obviously we appreciate your time and historically the support that you've provided to behavior management systems. For those of you that don't know, behavior management systems is a community mental health center here in Rapid City. We provide services to most of the western side of South Dakota. Obviously a large number of individuals in Pennington County, and so we come before you today just to request a continuation of the funding that we've received in the past. A little bit of information about what we do with those funds is here in the letter, including just through the first 9 months of our fiscal year this past year, we've served 2,879 clients from Pennington County. The majority of these folks have annual incomes of less than $20,000. 864 of those are children, the remaining are adults, obviously. We do partner with the Community Development Block Grant, in which we provide, you can see there, $175,000 per month in medications and supportive services to individuals in our community. And so, obviously, we try to be pretty conservative and use the funds provided by the county very cautiously. We also are a main partner in the Crisis Care Center that recently moved this year over to the Care Campus, and so we've helped over 2,000 individuals through services through there. Many of these folks can have no insurance or no other ways of funding their services, and so we try to really kind of partner and balance on those things so that we can get the most services to the most individuals who are needing them. Again, we do provide mental health services to individuals of all ages as well as substance abuse support. So in that being said, again, we just request that we continue the amount and obviously ask the, ask for your grant, I guess, through the, it is set forth. I think the letter says requirement, but I do think that you guys sort of have discretion with regard to the codified law with regard to the per diem amount that's awarded. But we would just like to request the continuing amount of $100,948 for this year.
Any questions?
One question. Do you
Commissioner?
do any court-ordered services too?
We do, and actually we've been very blessed and excited to see some great opportunities to partner with the specialty courts in the past year or two. So we provide support and services to individuals who are participating in veterans protocol or court, DUI court, drug court, and then we just recently started the mental health court this year in January, and so we're already kind of ahead of pace on the number of individuals that have already been accepted into the mental health court process, and that seems to be going well at this point, so we're pretty optimistic to be able to continue to do that. So those are very intensive services through the specialty courts. In addition to that, we certainly do partner with any other folks that are receiving, that are court ordered or have supervision of any kind under probation or parole to provide that mental health piece when we can. So
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Ms. Terry, can you tell me, you talked about the per diem amount. Can you kind of relate or reiterate kind of how that works?
Sure. So I brought a copy of the codified laws, 27A 510. So no charge against counties contributing to support of center, reduced rate if a county makes a contribution of at least $1 per capita to the support of a mental health center in accordance with 27A59. No charge may be levied against the county for persons provided treatment by such mental health center until the cumulative total of such charges reaches 75% of the total county contribution. Therefore, such county shall be charged at a rate of 75% of the rate at which it would be normally be charged in accordance with the fee schedule. So is that kind of what you were looking for?
It would be nice to have it on your paper, so.
Commissioner Hadcock, it's the statutes are the first thing in your binder after the list of contributing, or the list of
The
entities.
second page. Second page after.
Right, it's right before behavior management's letter.
This one. Okay. And do you have a past history of how much we have, like 2018, 2019 that we have gave?
So I have here with me for sure that our 2019 award was the same award amount. So we just wanted to keep that the same. And this is based on, I believe, the 2010 census numbers. So.
Thank you, Ms. Terry.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Roskinick?
I was just, how does the Rapid Map play into your organization?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Rapid Map?
Rapid Map?
They don't.
They don't.
I was like, I'm not familiar.
Maybe I'm on the wrong page.
No, you're not. You just have one line for each one of the
Oh, I see.
organizations.
Okay. Excuse me.
That's okay, I'm off the hook. I was like, no, I don't know.
Well, I was wondering what I missed. It's all good.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner?
I mean, the only comment I would have is, I think the work that you guys are doing is outstanding, and the community block grant that you guys get, that was something that was brought forward with the medications and the diversion from the emergency room costs. It was something that was worked on through years and years, and so I think the monies that we spend are well spent.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Terry. Next is healthcare centers.
And commissioners, if it helps, on the outside organizational tab, you'll see your first sheet. We're just gonna go down the list of entities and what they're requesting. It has their history amounts for 2018, 2019, and 2020. And then in your books, you'll see their requests in sequential order with what their letters are.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
So each organization is separate.
Correct. We just put the one summary on the top.
Okay. Thank you. And Mr. Roskinick is new, so he's kind of learning how this
I
budget
wondered if you
works,
guys
so.
weren't sure of the sequence and how the books were put together, so.
So we should say that because he's just learning how all this all works, so. All right, so next is Community Health Center, please. Your name, sir?
I'm Tim Trihard, I'm the CEO for the Community Health Center.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning to all of you.
Morning.
Thank
Morning.
you as always for taking a listen and for your support in the past. The Community Health Center of the Black Hills, we've been around for since 1992 that we've been open. Pennington County has been a strong partner of ours. In fact, one of our original impetus of being was because of the county in terms of our creation, was because the county commission realized that they had a responsibility basically to provide for health care for those that are indigent, and it's a lot cheaper to have them seen in a primary care setting at the community health center rather than have them go to the emergency room or to have them go hospitalized and to have to pay for that. So we've grown from basically one clinic room that we had was housed within Health and Human Services. We've grown to where we are now, where our main clinic, we now have about 90 employees, seeing last year roughly about 12,000 patients that came through our doors. The vast majority of those that come through our doors are low income, probably about 50% of those people that provide us, their incomes are below the federal poverty line. Last year, close to about 800 of those patients qualified as homeless or housing insecure. And for those patients that walk through our door that classify as that, we don't charge them anything when they work there. We want to make sure that they get access to their care, get access to medications, get access to their basic primary care to take care of all their chronic illnesses in a fashion that removes any of those barriers that they may have so that we can move them forward in terms of getting their lives back in order. We've grown, and we depend on the county commission to the support from the county commission to basically to provide a lot of things that we do not get reimbursed for. We get a federal grant. We also get a lot of other grants that kind of we put to provide that care. Last year, we provided about $3 million worth of subsidized care, and so the grants that we do kind of help provide all of that discounted care. Helps us. One of the big things that we've seen over the last few years that we've grown in is in the areas of our pharmacy. We opened up a pharmacy a few years ago. We're able to provide some discounted medications to our patients that see our doctors and our providers when they come through. And we're able to really expand basically the care that we're able to provide in part thanks to the funding that we get from Pennington County. Last year, or I can say last month, we filled in our pharmacy roughly about 5,500 prescriptions. So those are individual pill bottles that we are filling for all those patients that come through. And that's everything from diabetes medications to heart medications to behavioral health medications. And so obviously our goal is to keep people healthy and get them in the doors so that we can keep them from going to the emergency room, so that we can keep them from being hospitalized, hopefully so they can have a better type of life. The other thing that we've made a big, strong effort in the last year is increasing basically our mental health. We completed construction earlier this year on a new pod within our clinic, which we call our mental health pod. And we've begun to add staff. We've added counseling staff. We're hoping to add a second counselor later this year. We just brought on a provider that's going to focus on mental health, really writing prescriptions in terms of when it comes to mental health, because we have a big, strong belief in terms of how we integrate that. We also integrate really closely with BMS, with Terry's crew that just came here. We provide space, for free for BMS to have some of their licensed staff that are coming through to get their hours for internship, basically. So they work very closely with our patients so that we can provide that mental health and integrate that in with what we do so that they can get their diabetes taken care of at the same time as they're getting some of their mental health sort of things taken care of. So we try to take a very holistic approach. So that's basically what we do.
So, sir, are you, with your grants and subsidies, are they state, federal, or both?
We don't really get anything from the state. The state stuff that we get is just like any other clinic, in that we would submit for Medicaid for patients that qualify for that. Federal grant is the big one that we get that qualifies us as a federally qualified health center, and so it's a federal grant that we get through CMS, through HRSA. And then the rest are whatever sort of projects that we find that are not funded from that we seek funding, whether it be the Courage Foundation or Gwendolyn Stearns Foundation or coming to the Pennington County Commission.
Thank you, sir. Questions?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner
Jim,
Drews?
I presume that you understand the behavioral program also, and I presume you too are referring people back and forth
for behavior management systems.
Right.
Oh yeah. We refer quite a bit. Yeah, back and forth between the two, and so we try to coordinate as much as we can. One of the advantages that we have is that the cheaper meds that we can provide within our pharmacy. One of the things that qualify for that is you have to see one of our providers, or we have to have a referral from one of our providers to see a specialist. And so if you go see a specialist, if you go see a mental health provider over at BMS, if our providers have sent that over to BMS and BMS sends them back to us, they can get those cheaper meds.
Okay.
So we do a lot of things like that to try and
Nice.
coordinate.
Commissioner LaCroix?
I would just agree. I think, been part of the board for the last couple of years, the medications is a big thing. I mean, they're getting huge savings on that, and that's one of the things they did. And the mental health piece, that, if I remember it, the city, that was part of some vision funds to build that on.
The mental health thing,
And
yeah.
so, I mean, it's, this community health has several arms to it. I mean, as far as support and income, and seeing the board work, they're just like the extension. They're pretty thorough going through their budget every month. So, and keeping track of the numbers. So,
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner DeSanto?
Tim, you also provide dental services as well.
We do, yeah. I should not. That's a big part of what we do, actually. Yeah. So, yeah, we see probably about 3,000 of those visits are dental visits that we see, from pediatric all through, and that's a huge need in our community. Obviously, is for that basic, affordable dental care.
Okay.
So,
And then one question I have that it's not off subject, but when somebody comes in that's a full pay, private pay type of person with full coverage insurance and everything, does that benefit you?
if they have insurance,
Yeah.
we can submit to the insurance company just like anything else. What we often see, probably about 20% of our patients have some sort of insurance, and we do. It's great. I go there because
So do you have to reduce, because of the type of center you are, do you have to reduce what you're charging the insurance companies, or do you get to charge?
No, we just like any other
full
clinic.
cost?
Yeah, we charge out to Wellmark or whatever. Yeah, just like any other clinic, and we charge out to them.
So it's actually good if
Yeah,
people
absolutely. Yeah,
use
yeah.
your
The more people
facility.
that we have that are insured that come through our doors, the more we can take those profits and basically put them
Beautiful.
forward. So
Okay, thank you.
what we do see with those people that do come through that have private insurance, a lot of them will have really high deductibles, $2,000, $3,000. They're really just covering them if they go to the emergency room or the hospital. They can apply for us on our sliding scale. And so if they have a copay that's $25 and they're under the federal poverty line, they're going to only have to come and pay $15, and we're going to charge them the lesser amount when they come through rather than their copay. So there's a lot of advantages for patients, even if they are privately insured, still to come through our door, because we'll try to extend that.
Okay.
just for information, I've used them
Oh, so have I.
and turned it in. So,
Actually, you
I wasn't going to say that. So,
you had a PA there for 3 years that she was incredible. But now she's gone. So.
I'll say that our staff, we've probably got we're probably about 13, 14 providers that we have on staff, and I would put our providers are head and shoulders of, they're fabulous providers. They deal with a lot of really complicated sort of issues and patients, and they do a fabulous job.
And they listen.
They try.
They'll spend some time and listen to you, so that's cool.
Nice. Any questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you guys so much.
Have a good day, sir.
You too.
Non-mandated GIS contract, Rappamet. Hi, good morning.
Thank you for letting me speak this morning. My name is, excuse me, Angie Talon. I am the GIS coordinator. I took over after Don Jarvanine retired last year. You probably remember him speaking
Yes,
here.
he's gonna be well missed. Don's been
He
in
is.
GIS for a long time and made some incredible changes.
Yes,
So-
he has. The GIS division is ending its 21st year of operations. For all city and county staff, we do provide data, desktop server software, custom web mapping applications, project setup and technical support. For the public, we provide web mapping applications, walk-in map and data production, and map and data downloads. Some of the recent projects that have been completed were upgrades to the Rapid Map interface, most of which were security updates. We do try to keep that up to date. We also just finished rebuilding our central data server, including redesign of the several of the map layers that we do provide to staff. We did have new aerial photos that were taken in the spring of 2018, both of the Rapid City Metropolitan Planning Organization area and the developed areas of the county. The total area that was that consisted of this project was a little over 1,000 square miles that we had flown. Those aerials were processed last year, and we did receive them in the fall, and they did go online right away.
So Miss Angie, the redesign was, can you kind of explain the redesign and why?
Redesign of the map layers, certainly, absolutely. All of our layers reside in a database management system that we have. That's how all of our users access the data to do a lot of their projects. We had to redesign it to keep up with the changing technology. Over the years, it's just been transitioned from one, say, version to the next version. It's just been upgraded. We had gotten to the point where the upgrades, some of the changes were not applying. So we had to just redesign the actual layers themselves. So the schema, so things like the fields that we have within the layers that we do provide, we just had to redo those so that as we continue to upgrade with these versions, it'll keep working.
And can you tell us who would use and how many users you have for this system?
Absolutely. So I do have those numbers. So right now we support 150 desktop installations of our software. 83 of those are county employees and 67 of those are city employees. This does not include RapidMap, which is all browser-based, and that's provided to all city and county staff. And we do have a public accessible version that's available to anyone that wants to view it. We also provide server installations. So we have two centralized data servers for our stuff alone, which is provided to all city and county staff. We also have 2 data servers that are housed over at County Highway for their projects. And we have 4 web mapping servers that we provide software for as well.
Okay, any questions? Ms. Angie?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Roskinek.
we're fortunate in the private sector to have Rapid Map because if I go to Beacon or other services in other counties, it gets to be a little expensive. So
It can
keep
be.
up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Angie.
Thank you.
Next, we have Public Advocate. Your name, sir?
Paul Rankin, I'm the public advocate, and this is my assistant, Andrea Rosenberg,
Hi, I'm the other staff attorney in the office.
Good morning.
and we're seeking a continuation of our contract. We're not seeking a raise in fees, which is a good thing. Well, you know, we keep our litigation. We didn't have any extraordinary litigation expenses this year. Didn't have to hire the detective more than a couple times. So that kind of kept the costs within reason.
So Paul and Andrea, tell us what you do for the county.
You know, I do criminal law, you know, and we do the A&Ns. We do half the A&Ns in the county. We do, you know, the conflicts at a public defender's office. We do adult criminal cases, juvenile cases, on occasion child support, abuse and neglect cases. And we provided in our letter a statistic, and I just want to talk about one thing. Okay. It says last year we closed 439 cases. Excuse, I'm just getting over a cold. And it goes on to explain that in our system, that's 439 individuals. I just closed 2 people's files in the last week, and between them they had 15 files. You know, they had numerous felony files and numerous misdemeanor files. But we can look at that and say, we know we're going to negotiate some of these away. So we only open them as one case in our system.
Okay.
Wow. So that number is probably 600.
Wow.
And I have noticed that has been the trend, I would say, probably about 2017. Prior to that, we've had a lot of people come in, a lot of just individuals. Now, after 2017, we have less people, but the people that we do get, it's kind of a rarity when they have only one charge. They might have 2, 5, 10. I think the highest we've had is one guy had 11. So
that was one of mine I just closed.
Yep. I had a gal that I just closed that had 6 felony files. So it's kind of the same people, more charges. And in abuse and neglect cases, I represent both, either parents, mom, dad, sometimes children as well.
Thank you. Any questions for Paul or Andrea?
No. Just a comment is, thanks for that information, because that's what we've been hearing a great deal, is that, you know, one person, by not getting things done quickly, we'll end up having 6, 7 charges in a time span and so forth like that. I think I've got some other questions, but that'd probably be off the dais. So just questions about the service, and could you expand that type of thing? Where are you guys at with your cases? Are you able to handle what you have now?
Yes. I've been doing this. This will be my 18th year.
Yeah.
So I'm very efficient at what I do. And once you've done it for a certain period of time, when you get a new file, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So I can get right to the point where I need to. And I have a working relationship, and Andrea does too, with the state's attorney's office. So, you know, after a certain amount of experience, you know what the end game is. And I do. And so I can meet with the state's attorney, we can negotiate stuff. I try, you know, trials are very expensive for the county. I had one this year where I got a not guilty verdict in a strangulation case. But last year I settled 24 cases that were set for trial. And, you know, that's $10,000 a piece for the county with the bringing jurors and bailiffs and all this. And so it's in our best interest, and in 90% of the time, in the client's best interest to negotiate a favorable settlement. Because, you know, when you're a public defender, by the time the case gets to you, there's something there. Because many eyes have looked at it, the police, the investigators, you know, the grand jury, the state's attorney. And so it's not like, oh, it's just going to go away. But, you know, we try to get the best result for the client and for everybody involved.
And I'd say I'm in a similar boat. I certainly haven't been there that long, but I've been at Dakota Plains coming up on I just finished my year 7 in March. We get appointed for criminal cases sometimes right after their first court date. Other times, if the public defender has discovered a conflict or has had some kind of breakdown between the attorney and the client, we might get them halfway through, and we see it out to the end unless something occurs to where we would have a conflict. Private attorneys ask us, oh, how many cases do you have? I looked at my case list this morning. I currently have 123 people. And that's par for the course at this point. Abuse and neglect cases are a little different. We get those right away. When DSS, or DHS now, takes custody of children, they email the judge. Judge says, okay, I'm going to authorize continued custody. I'm appointing PDO mom, DPLS dad, and then private attorneys, kids, other dads, custodians. And those can go a week. They might get dismissed in a week. They might go a year, 2 years. It kind of depends on how well the parent does with the department, whether they're doing what they need to do or not.
Well, I appreciate you guys feeding us up. Mark and I are on the Public Defenders Board, and we're starting to hear some of this stuff. Yeah. You know, I used to rely on Bus Crew because Bus Crew, he knew this back then, but so we're getting to learn quite a bit more of what's happening and these repeated cases and stuff. So this is probably the only time we ever get to see you guys.
Yeah.
You know? So.
It's true.
We're in court a lot.
So,
Monday's brutal.
so Paul and Andrea, bottom line, so we have a public defender's office. How do you get the cases? I mean, you expounded on that a little bit, but you have many cases, so how do you end up with them from the public defender's office?
We're designed as the conflict office of the public defender. So somebody gets arrested, they fill out an application, the judge appoints the public defender's office first.
Okay.
But they look at the file and they go, well, we can't take this case because the victim is somebody we're already representing in another file.
Okay.
So then it comes to us.
Or, the judges are very good, the PDO is very good at paying attention when you have a group of people that are, say, committing a burglary. They go break into a house, they all get arrested together. Then the judges say, okay, this is all the same crime, so PDO 1, DPLS 1, private attorney. Yeah. So they do, we have a working system that I'm sure you're not privy to, but that's primarily either we get a public defender's withdraw or there's just a group of people and then judges start going down the list.
Thank you. That's
and there is a crime with multiple defendants.
Yep.
Lots of those of late, unfortunately, with the narcotic issues.
Because you might have 4 or 5 people in a car passing whatever they're using around. They all get arrested for it, they all get charged for it, and then they all need attorneys for it too.
Well, thank you. Any other questions for Paul or Andrea? You guys do an awesome job for us.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I've seen you for a while. Thank you. Have a good day. Next, we have senior citizen support. Good morning, ma'am.
I'm April Malik from Pennington County Commission of Aging, Secretary. So just requesting your continued support for what we're doing. I apologize, I was asked to do this last minute, so not really sure what all you'd like to know. I'll take your...
Just basically, ma'am, what you do at for the county.
Okay.
And why we need you.
Okay.
How about that?
So yeah, well, I'm personally the secretary of this organization, but historically, this organization distributes the funds through subsidizing transportation needs. So we help take the workload off of you to decide what to fund. In particular organizations, Department of Human Services, Meals on Wheels, the Western South Dakota Senior Services, Western Resources for Independent Living, and also the senior centers in Keystone Hill City and Rapid City.
Nice.
And so last year, we funded, well, in the first 6 months of 2019, we funded $19,250. Of that, $12,000 went to Meals on Wheels. DSS had requested $5,000, and the senior centers had requested some things for some chairs, a water heater, and a door lock.
Okay. Any questions?
Madam Chair, I just want to thank April for serving on that committee, and I'm proud to be on that committee, and the funds that we allocated last year or this year, one would be the defibrillator for the Hill City Senior Citizen Center, which is across from my office in Hill City. And
you need that?
now that the seniors are line dancing, they need that type of equipment. But, it's a good organization and well deserved.
Did you plan on using that anytime soon?
And then we'll see.
Teasing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day, ma'am. Next, we have Black Hills Council Local Governments, Ms. Alley.
Thank you. My name's Allie Demersman, and I'm the Director of Black Hills Council of Local Governments. And I'd like to begin by thanking the Commission for becoming a member of our organization this year. On behalf of our staff and the board, thank you. We really appreciate your membership. So I have provided a request for this year. I'm just going to provide a quick background of the work that we do at Black Hills Council of Local Governments. We are one of 6 planning and development districts in South Dakota, and we serve 9 counties in western South Dakota. Our role is to provide technical planning assistance to our communities. So really the bulk of what we do is working on project development. So we work on lots of infrastructure projects, community facilities projects, hazard mitigation projects, environmental reviews, assistance to our communities with planning issues, accessing and administering state and local and federal grant programs. So we work on a lot of different projects for our communities. So I've provided a funding request for 2020 for Black Hills Council of Local Governments membership dues. The funding that our communities provide helps to support the technical planning assistance we provide to county departments, as well as the municipalities with populations under 1,000 people within the county and any special districts within the county. I've provided a list of the projects that we've worked on recently within Pennington County. And I've also, last week we had a meeting with the department heads to talk about our services, and we've already received calls from some of those departments about helping with projects. I've also talked to the towns, and I can tell you that they're all thrilled that Pennington County has become a member. I have meetings with Wall and New Underwood in a few weeks to talk to their town boards as well. So thank you again, and I'm here for any questions that you might have.
Questions for Ally?
No question with Ally. I think you're going to be hearing a lot from us. So
yeah,
we appreciate it.
Thank you. We look forward to working with you more closely.
Thank you, Ms. Ally.
And I was really pleased with the response from the department heads.
Yeah.
So it's good.
And Commissioner DeSanto, I did send you the schedule for this week. I don't know if you looked at your email for what we have on our schedule for the meeting, so you kind of know what we're going to talk about. Yeah.
See you Thursday.
Yeah, thank you.
Next week.
Yes. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ally. Next, we have Black Hills Works Foundation.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thanks for reviewing our requests and always listening to us when we've went to visit with you. I'm Brad Sadoff, CEO for Black Hills Works. Black Hills Works, we're entering our 62nd year of serving people with intellectual and developmental disabilities in our community. As our letter states, we serve over 600 people with disabilities. We are the better alternative, the better option of people with developmental and intellectual disabilities living versus an institutional living, which would be in Redfield, South Dakota, or even sometimes out of state on it. But anyway, to live a community-based life, which is what we do, support people to live in our community, to participate in our community, to work in our community, to volunteer in our community. A big component of that is transportation services. And over the years, we've had a close working relationship with the city public transportation system and work to support people with disabilities to use that to the greatest extent possible. But there are a number, actually quite a bit of things, of gaps that aren't met by the city public transportation, and we end up, we fill those gaps. A lot of folks aren't able to use the city public transportation system because of either the medical needs are too comprehensive for them to use it and they need support, or behavioral support needs that are too comprehensive for the public transportation system, or also the need for people to get to places and get where public transportation doesn't go, but also get to places at times public transportation doesn't go. So we put on a lot of miles, I guess, filling in those gaps out there. And our request is, a little bit of support to try to help fill those gaps. Over the years, we try to bundle all kinds of grants, donations, funding sources to fill the transportation need, to fund those costs. And it's gotten tighter and tighter this last couple years, primarily driven by, there's these 5309, 5310 grants that help do that, but though they originate at the federal level, come down to the state level, trickle into the city level, and more, well, one, there's less of that. They're harder and harder to get, and more of that money's going into the municipalities. out there. So we're getting, we're doing with a lot less from that source. So we're looking for ways to help fill that in and hoping that you would be supportive of that request.
Thank you, Brad. Any questions for Brad?
I do. Brad, what other organizations do you apply for? And I'm talking like United Way, Prokurovich, Community Block Grants. And the reason why I ask, some organizations are doing some different stuff. I mean, like the Community Block Grant, they're getting away from these small amounts. They get a lot of 5,000 for this, 10,000 for that, and from the mayor's direction and the board's direction, they're trying to. We want to get the big bang for our buck. I mean, if you look at what we do here, that's what we do. I mean, we give big money to the mental health, $100,000, healthcare, $100,000. If we start splitting and taking money from one to the other to do another one, we're going to be in the same boat. I mean, I don't mean to burst your bubble. There's some of these other organizations that this year it's you, and then we're going to have 5 more next year wanting the same thing. And I think we as a county are doing a really good job of identifying these are our needs and these are what we need to focus on. That's just my insight.
We do, right now with Community Development Block Grant, we're using that, and we've been fortunate to receive Community Development Block Grant for a couple big projects that have to do with physical buildings, where one of them's to help with the day service building and part of a desperately need renovation that's over there. And then a second one is to help be a partnership with braiding together a governor's home that's going in with our traumatic brain injury program, because getting the funding sources for the work that we do are just, they keep getting scrunched and scrunched and scrunched. And we've been using Block Grant to help fill in some of those gaps and try to meet the traumatic brain injury needs and some of our day service needs. When it comes to like Prokurovich, we do work with Prokurovich and present big projects to them around helping to meet needs of folks that have co-occurring developmental disabilities and mental health needs is an example of one, and trying to develop startup programming for that. What was the other ones you mentioned?
I think there's another one, Black Hills.
United Way. We're not a United Way agency. We just, we've had a lot of discussions on it, and again, tried to go, well, there's always a fundraising blackout if you're part of theirs, and that's been the primary thing is we just want to keep going 12 months out of the year and trying to work our donors and find funding streams through them also. So,
thank you. I also believe your organization is a awesome organization, Brad. But I think I've said this for years. We have a lot of mandated things that we actually interact with. Some of the things that a lot of our community do, and if we have the money, this is my opinion, it should go to the already funding programs that we have and that we already are working on, because most of the people that I've seen that have came to us, we basically do those needs already through our own organizations. But I do believe your organization does some wonderful work for our community. So.
Thank you.
I'll second that. They do.
I do believe the same thing, and as always, you can always come to the Knights of Columbus for additional, ask other councils to participate in the programs to get you guys money. We've got 11 Black Hills councils that you could go to and ask for contributions.
Okay. We want to get as many people participating and supporting this need as we possibly can.
You bet.
It does take a whole community to get it done.
It does.
Right.
Thank you, Brad.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Fairgrounds.
Commissioners, Fairgrounds is under their own tab in your workbooks.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the commission. I'm Ron Jeffries, General Manager for Central States Fair.
Everybody on there. Give me just a sec, Brett. Or go ahead.
Had to flip the other
Ron.
direction here.
Everybody got fairgrounds tab?
We're on fairgrounds.
Blank page.
He didn't want anything. It's just a little thing that says, I'm good.
I'll loan you my pen.
Okay, Ron.
So first of all, I'd like to thank you again for allowing Central States Fair, Inc. to be the tenants on the fairgrounds that helps maintain that property. You're all fairly aware of the types of activities and events we host. I was almost late getting over here, and then I was trying to get a water leak fixed and dry out an arena for an event tonight so that we could make sure we could host one of the barrel race series that we have here. But we are what we call an agritourism facility. We try to bring people to Rapid City routinely, and we're fairly good at it. The request that I put in was a 2.4% increase, bringing the total to $188,182 for next year's support from Pennington County. For perspective purposes, we spend approximately, depending on the year, but approximately $960,000 on maintaining the fairgrounds. The balance of the $770,000 comes from monies raised by Central States Fair. County's contribution, the 188, makes up the balance of that, just shy of $1 million number each year. I'll also tell you that if it was not for the Department of Corrections inmate labor program, we would not be able to function as we do currently. We use between 7 and 10 Department of Corrections inmates every single day. And that's really what allows us. There was 5 of them out mowing today in the short window that we have to mow. But
every 2 days.
Every 2 days. But we work diligently to maintain cost and keep a tight thumb on things. And we ask for your support in the tune of $108,182.
Any questions?
Where's the leak?
In front of one of the horse barns. I spent the morning over at City Utilities trying to look at maps. I went back to 1949 and still don't know if that identifies where our leak is. I'm just going to have to start shutting off lines and finding out where we get the waters to stop in certain spots, and then say, okay, let's track from there.
Oh, it's not a roof leak. It's
No,
coming up from the ground.
it's a groundwater leak.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I feel for you.
Roof leak would be a lot easier.
Yeah.
you could identify those easier.
So this is not a question for you, Ron, but Miss Cindy, our auditor, is she here?
Not here. Oh, yeah, she's here. Heidi.
Miss Cindy, so the county fairgrounds gets growth in CPI. They get $195,360 from taxable income, right? Do you have your paper in front of you? I saw, and I didn't think about this till just when I saw this.
Until you had to put me on the spot.
Yes,
right?
yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Sorry. And
I
that's
don't know that
means
I
of finance.
brought down my means of finance with
You want to use mine and I'll use Gary's? Now that I wrote all over it. And then this one too, Cindy. So. So on that, means of finance from the taxpayers is $195,360, right?
That is correct, but that includes that mandated 5% increased factor from the state statute that we have to add. So
and these
potentially they're not going to spend all of the $195,360 that we have to levy. They'll be working with that $188,181.
Meaning, say the one, okay, where'd you get the, okay. So so do they get taxes plus the 188? The 188 is what they get from taxes.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And if you use stored CPI, or with stored CPI and general fund, it's 195. So it's, am I correct? 20 cents extra levied. Is that what that means? Can you explain
In
that
calculating the use of stored CPI, I did not increase county fairgrounds or accumulated building. All of that increase went into general fund.
Okay. Just, that's what I needed to know. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Gary. Sorry, Ron, I just saw that and I was like, okay, just to make sure that people knew where that cash flow was coming from. Okay.
Very good.
Any questions for Ron?
Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Have a
Get
great
the
day.
leak fixed.
What's that?
Get the leak fixed.
Oh, yeah, get the leak fixed. We have Friday Night Lights Barrel Racing Series tonight, and we have the Truck Defender Summer Horse Sale Sunday morning. So
Just look for the wet spot in the ground.
yeah, those are easy to follow. It's hard when you get a quarter of an inch of rain every night. So thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you, Ron. Next, board, we have, if I'm correct, weed and pest.
That's nasty.
How about a 5-minute break?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Everybody ready?
If they would put on the additional space.
Next, we have weed and pest. Scott Guffey, please.
Right, it does make sense. Way more sense.
Yeah.
Morning, Sky.
Good morning.
Then we don't have.
So I got several budgets here. Should we just start with weed and pest, 615?
Okay, let us get to everybody on the weed and pest.
Very last tab.
Oh, last one. Is there any money left?
I think we spent it all. We reduced you 100,000 already. How do you want to do this, Scott? Do you want to do yours basically and then go call up each conservation district?
Yep.
Okay.
So 615 is the weed and pest budget. It's revenue supported through our agency agreements that we have in grant funds. So if we don't bring in that revenue, then we don't spend our budget side. So it offsets our impact to the county general. But I have 5 full-time employees, including myself. Summertime, 6 months out of the year, they ran out of 605, 3 of those employees, they're weed sprayers. And then in the wintertime, they're running chainsaws doing our shaded field break work. So that's why the number looks kind of weird when it says 3.5 for full-time employees. Half of them are ran through 616 in the wintertime. And then we run 5 seasonal applicators. It says 1.38. There's 5 bodies, but when you average it out on their hours, it equals to like 1.38 a full-time employee. So
Scott, can you for new employees kind of line out what you do in weed and pest?
Sure. So for weed and pest, it's state mandated that every county has a weed and pest board. Some counties, the commissioners serve as that board. Other counties, they appoint them. That's what we do in Pennington County, and we have our county broke up into districts. And then we have a liaison from the commission that sits on there. Your liaison now is Mark. Our responsibility is to control our county right-of-ways. That's number 1 priority. And then also to enforce state weed and pest laws. So there's 7 state declared noxious weeds, and then the counties can add 8 additional. Pennington County currently has 7. 6 of them are weeds, and then 1 is the Japanese beetle that was found out in the St. Martin's area on some infested ornamental landscape stock that they brought in on that. So we've been trying to keep that in check before it takes over. So we will notify landowners that they have noxious weeds and that their requirement to control them. And then we also, and that's what I have, a seasonal, that's all he does. He drives the county roads, public roads. We see one of those state declared noxious weeds on your property, we're gonna let you know that you have those weeds. And then we also notify them that we do have a chemical cost share program that steers them towards a local commercial applicator or else a local chemical dealer. So they're getting the right product to put out there. They're not going to Walmart or Hardware Hank and getting that product that's probably not the right one and not getting any instruction on how to apply it.
We're using gasoline.
Or gasoline, whatever means. And then if we have a complaint if your neighbors have some weeds that are encroaching on your property, then they can call us, and then we can do a full-blown enforcement if people don't do the control time in a timely manner. So
Does anybody, go ahead.
Just kind of a nutshell on what we do. And then, like I said, also we do a number of agency work, Forest Service, DOT, Rapid City, and then a number of grants that we go after too.
Anybody have any questions on his budget?
Yeah, well, just on, Scott, do you guys do any aquatic species?
We do. We have a unique agreement with Sheridan Lake. Forest Service buys the granular herbicide that we apply. Then we apply the herbicide, and then we borrow a pontoon boat from the marina owner up there, and then we treat along the beaches, the boat ramps, boat docks, and stuff like that. It's curly pondweed that they have that can be pretty invasive, and then it gets a dense mat, and then gets in the boat motors and stuff like that. So
Okay.
we do that.
Good, thanks.
Scott, is there a district of the 5 that you find more challenging than others with what you guys do?
A district of
the 5 districts?
Of our...
It's just challenging.
Whether... Right, well, the Black Hills is probably the worst of the noxious weeds, yeah. And we have a good working relationship with the Black Hills National Forest, and through our Black Hills Regional Forest Strategy and our Black Hills Invasive Plant Partnership, we're bringing all those counties together, state and local agencies. And to put a plug in for Black Hills Local Council, we've just started to partner with them to help us facilitate those partnerships. So, but yeah, it's definitely the hills is probably our worst weed problem. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I just wondered. I
yeah.
thought maybe that was going to be the answer. But
yeah, with all the disturbances.
Realize you guys got the chainsaws out, so.
Oh, yeah, yep.
So, Scotty, we did something different this year. A goal of yours was to put the 2 conservation districts under you that used to be like that for years, and for some reason it was taken off. And it sounds like they were in the same ball game with you doing things, and they agreed to put you in charge, basically, of and help them with some, maybe not in charge is the word, but
just helping with their
them.
budget preparation, yeah, because I think there's some disconnect on what they want from you guys and what you're looking to see from them. So,
yes,
yeah, I worked with both of them to try to get them into at least a similar budget format like the rest of the counties do, so it makes a little more sense to you guys.
Okay.
Just one point on our weed and pest one. There was a little bit of increase, obviously, on wages.
Mm-hmm.
Then workman's comp, there was a bump in workman's comp as directed from Cindy. There was a little bit of more bump in 615 because I tried to better distribute where that workman's comp came out of, because we were kind of splitting it between 616, our natural resources one, and then our weed and pest. Well, we have more full-time employees, myself and my crew leader, coming out of 615, so I had better representation where that money should be coming out of, which budget. So that's, you'll see a little bit more of an increase on 615 and a little bit of a decrease in 616. As far as operational, I froze the line except for equipment vehicles. Last year we purchased a pickup. This year we got it at 20,000. I dropped it down to 20,000. That's to do some ATV replacement. Hoping I can buy at least 3, maybe 4 new ones. You know, we get maybe 5 years life out of those ATVs. We're pretty tough on them. I mean, we're going through some rough country, and plus we got a 25-gallon sprayer on the back. So we don't get a lot of shelf life out of them. And then when they're down, obviously they're down for like a month or something. That really puts us behind if one of those go down. So that's to update our fleet on the ATVs, then hopefully keep a couple of spares. So if one does go down, we can just pull that spray equipment off that one, put it on an old one, and keep going. Revenue, I kept the same, but I am in the process of working with BLM and Buffalo Gap National Grasslands to try to get some agreements with them. BLM, we're close. I submitted all the paperwork. Hopefully we'll have one in place yet this year. Looks like it'll be about a $10,000 a year agreement, and that's to treat BLM property down there along the Cheyenne River and north of that wall country there. Excited about that one. We haven't had an agreement with them ever, so we're pathing the way to get one with them. And then Buffalo Gap National Grassland out of the wall area. They have some new leadership down there, and they're eager to work with us on getting some treatments done in the grassland down there. So,
any questions?
I got one question. Scott, at one point in time at one of our meetings, it seemed like I heard that you do some of the cutting to clear away coverage so that you can get sunlight onto the roads, is that right?
Yep,
Okay.
that's a good transition into our 616, our natural resources budget. So that one covers, that's our stewardship agreement with the Forest Service. And what that stewardship agreement does is allows us to do shaded field break on the Forest Service adjacent to our county roads or county right-of-ways. The current one we're working on, the only one we've been working on is Idlewild Mountain Road. We got all the merchantable timber off that, and how that stewardship works is the Forest Service donates the stumpage value to the county. So then we can, whatever we can get for that merchantable timber there, that'll help offset when we do the fields work. So this first one, we didn't have the equipment to do the fields work in-house through us. Since then, now we do have that. So the beginning part, when we did the bid letting, it was do the commercial and the fields. So it ended up costing us about $350 an acre when they're using the mechanical, and about $150 when they're doing hand saws. They've done all that work, and then they took the timber too. So we didn't really come out ahead on that. Now that we have the equipment, we have the skidster with the mechanical head on it. There was a chunk there that didn't get harvested because the commercial guys didn't want to mess with it. It was steep slopes, and we would have had to gone a long ways to deck them. Well, we worked with Forest Service, said, hey, we'll take that mine stretch, cut that timber, and we'll take our Bobcat with the grappler head, and we'll deck them a half mile down. We were able to make $7,000 just on that timber and about that mile stretch. So going in the future now, when we have commercial product, that's going to offset and quite a bit on our budget here. So,
well, I just want to let you know that when we were at the Western Conference for County Commissioners up in Spokane, I used you as an example. I'm glad that I described it exactly the way that you just described it, but there were several county commissioners that were talking about the cost of weed and pest and working with the Forest Service and stuff. And I said, you know, our weed and pest department is working with the Forest Service, and they're actually making some profit off of the timber they're cutting so that they can, you know, offset the cost. Yep. And wow, that's a great idea. So, yeah. You're nationally known now.
Yeah, and that stewardship agreement at the time was only the second one done in all of Region 2. I think the Mule Deer Foundation did a small one down in Colorado, but we were the first one to do kind of a major one in all of Region 2, which takes in Colorado, Wyoming, South Dakota, and Nebraska. So it was a pretty good feather in both.
Great idea.
The Black Hills and our cap. So,
Pat, you always do a great job for us. On the east and west, the conservation districts, can you tell how they coincide and bottom line, the combination and what that helps and what that does also for your department?
Sure. So the conservation districts work directly with the agricultural community and also with the NRCS, and that's why there's two districts. If you're wondering why there's two districts, there's two NRCS districts or two district conservationists. One is here, Matt Auden, Matt. The other one is Lynn Shell out there. And they are two kind of different landscapes if you look at it. I mean, Pennington County's got a pretty unique geography throughout the whole county, from the hills down the Badlands to the corn country to the rangelands. So they work closely with the landowners and the NRCS on getting projects done on private lands, including weed control and stuff like that. And then also in the hills on doing forestry projects, thinnings on private lands too. So we work fairly close with them, not hand in hand, but we try to work with them as much as we can. I try to get to the meetings every so often when I can too. So
thank you. Any questions on the east and west districts?
And they'll be up here in a minute. They have a PowerPoint to kind of better explain what all they do too.
Okay.
With regards to, you know, the right of way, the trees, like you said, on that Idlewild Road, what other corridors are the Forest Service looking at right now?
We're looking at Norris Peak going in and doing a follow-up. They've done a sale in there, so that they got some regen coming in, so they want that treated. I wasn't so excited about that because there's no commercial to pull off there, but there is a chunk in there, about 30 acres that didn't get harvested, so hopefully we can include that so it'll offset our cost. That one, they're real close. The biggest thing is getting the NEPA all covered. Sheridan Lake Road we're looking at doing because obviously the realignment, and then South Rochard Road because the realignment to get that one done too. And then we have a number of roads that we have on our long list, Deerfield Road, but those are kind of on the short list right now.
So primarily those corridors are all paved.
Right, yeah. Idlewild isn't paved. And the reason why we picked Idlewild is because you have Silver City there, and then you have Pactola Estates and Idlewild. And kind of a one way out. You know, there's two ways, but you're pretty limited. So if there's every emergency event, you're going to have traffic.
The reason I say that's because I'm still driving around trees from my place to Highway 385, and I've contacted the Forest Service, and there's still one lane in a lot of places because the trees are laying across the road. So
right, and if we weren't knee deep in weeds right now, we'd be out there running saws. But our priority right now is
it's all good.
Yeah. So just bottom line, like on weed and pest, you know, we're bringing in $140,000. So if you minus that, our 340 requests or some odd net impact, we're about $200,000 to the general fund. So if we're not bringing in that revenue, then we're not spending on the other side. And then likewise, if it bumps up, then I can always add a couple of seasonals to cover that, and then it's covered by our revenue. So one other thing I just want to touch on quick, predator control. That's what we pay into the state game fish and parks. It's a 2-to-1 match. What we pay into the state game fish and parks matches at $2, and that pays for the state trapper. And they help out our community there with mainly trapping coyotes out. But any predator issues they have, they can call state trapper, and that's our contribution. And then the other one is Title III. I don't know if Jerome talked anything about Title III, but that's monies we get in from the Secure the Rural School Act. It's kind of use it or lose it. We can have it on the books for about 2 years, and then if it's not obligated, the feds can come in and take it. A lot of it's been going to search and rescue. Well, it's dependent on if they have a search and rescue event. Obviously, they've had a major one with the Serenity search right now, but some years there isn't an event that we can pull off that, so then it builds up. Then we have that danger of them pulling it off. So I think we really need to look at how we want to capture those monies. With our shaded field break work, we can capture that because that's part of the defined work. And if we can at least capture it and then put it into another, account. We used to have the emergency disaster fund that we used on grasshoppers and on the pine beetle in the past. If we could, stick it there, and then if there is a search and rescue event or something like that, then they could pull off that or something. But I think it's worth discussion in the future. We've been visiting between the Sheriff's Office, Fire, and myself and the auditor how best capture those funds. Hasn't been a guarantee because it's congressionally authorized, but they just passed a long-term spending authority on it, so hopefully it'll be some stable funding. It amounts to about $30,000-$35,000 that we get annually, so it's a fair amount.
Yeah.
But it's pretty restricted on what we can use it for, and it's got to be used on the forest.
You can capture it with the shaded fuel break.
Yep. So we can
you'll
at
be
least
able to do that
capture
every
it.
year, right?
What's it? Yeah, that's a guarantee. So we know we're going to have that expense, so we could at least capture it. And then if you guys wanted to use some of it on fire or search and rescue, then at least it's captured, So we don't have to worry about it reverting back. So
very good.
Maybe we'll meet again and we'll bring a proposal to you here.
How much is that we usually get per year?
About 30 or 35,000. So it's a fair amount. And then there's about that same amount that goes to Title II that the RAC. Did you remember when Tracy from the Forest Service came and talked about the Resource Advisory Committee, the Title II dollars? We get about that same amount that goes there annually that we can use on projects on the Forest Service. So hopefully you got your paperwork in, we can get you on that RAC.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of pots there that we can pull off federal funds, so that we can do some good with too. Yep.
Thank you.
Good deal. Thanks, Scott.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Nope.
With that, I'll turn it over to the conservation districts. And like I said, they have a short PowerPoint to better explain what all they do and how they benefit the residents of the county. Okay.
Thanks for helping them.
Thank you, Scott.
This year, because of the budgets, I think it was a good idea because once in a while, when you're trying to do a budget and you're dealing with government, it's very hard to figure that out as a separate entity. So, for the conservation districts, I always believed in them, but the budgets weren't kind of coming in like where they were supposed to, in a sense, meaning trying to figure out what we wanted. So thank you for helping both sides there, Scotty.
Absolutely.
Good morning. Your name, ma'am?
Lindsay, and I represent Pennington Conservation District.
Morning,
which
Lindsay.
would be the west side of the Cheyenne River.
Thank you.
Yep. So first off, I'd like to start by saying thank you for taking the time to listen to us today. I'm going to go over a little bit of history of the conservation districts to help you understand a little more about what we do, why we're here, and what our goals are. So our main mission is to preserve the Earth's natural resources. Taking it back, I'm sure you guys are all familiar with the Dirty 30s. So the conservation districts were started by President Franklin D. Roosevelt back in the Dust Bowl. He saw a need for soil conservation, and so he started the Natural Resource Conservation Service, which is a federal agency. And in order to have that, he wanted there to be local input, which would be the county conservation districts, which really are like the boots on the ground of the whole operation. They are a very tight, it's a tight partnership, and they work together. We still have soil erosion problems today, just not near as bad as it was back then. So a little bit about soil health. If you can see in the picture of corn, on the right side, the corn looks quite a bit better than the left side. The right side is in a no-till plot, and the left side is in a tillage plot. So it's been found that tilling is bad for soil. And you ask people, well, why do you continue to till your ground? It's usually because, well, my dad did, my granddad did. So our biggest obstacle is we have to learn, unlearn, and relearn. So, and I guess if you look at those pictures, what do you think is going to happen when it rains? That soil on the left side, it looks like concrete. It's just going to run off of there. There's no pores for it to enter into the soil, whereas on the right side, there's more residue on the ground that will be able to take in the moisture and help hold it and make it last longer and give you a better crop. Also, when you till, it hurts your earthworms, it hurts your arthropods, your nematodes, your fungi, your bacteria. You need all of that stuff to make healthy soil and have a good crop. And basically, when you till it up, it gives it like a flood of nutrients and a flood of water. And then you're not going to have any retention on the bottom, where you kind of want like a drip system. You want it to give it to the plants slow and make it last. And also diversity comes into play. Different plants put different nutrients into the soil, so it's always good to change out your crops. Go from there. So why does this matter to you? If you're producing more food, whether it's for people or livestock, you're obviously going to be making more money. And when producers make more money, they usually come spend it in town. Also, when you're tilling and there isn't much left on the ground, like when it's snowing and stuff, that causes more snow to go onto the roads. You have to plow more snow off of the roads. If we can keep it in the fields, that's better too. And then it also helps you keep the water around. So it always affects everyone in one way or another. Pennington Conservation District has a few different outreach programs. We publish 4 different newsletters a year, every quarter. This is a picture of one of the pages on one of our newsletters. We have a Facebook page. We host tours and workshops. We also participate with Arbor Day poster contests, Arbor Day essay contests, which Mr. Drews and LaCroix helped us judge this year, and we were happy you guys were there to help with that. I thought it went really good. That was for the speech contest. And then we also have a booth at the Central States Fair with the Hills Area Conservation Districts, where we basically hand things out. We ask kids and people that want to learn about conservation different questions, and they get rewarded on those questions. And then it's also a place for people to get more information on conservation districts. And the state association has a scholarship that we also give out to high school students that are going to pursue a degree in conservation or agriculture. So we help push that, get that out to our schools, and they can apply if they want. The services that we offer is we sell and plant trees. We design tree plans. We have 2 no-till drills that we lease out. One of them is with an operator, one of them is not. So if you don't have a tractor or you don't have the time to do the planting yourself, we can provide that for you. We also have drone services, and then I can go out and do cultural resource surveys. And then our agreements and grants, we have a cooperative agreement with the NRCS, which basically means that I work for the NRCS 11 hours a week, and they help, I guess they reimburse the conservation district for the time that I work for them. And I do a lot of paperwork for them. I do a lot of map designs, a lot of cultural resource surveys, a lot of working hands-on with the producers. We're also entering a good neighbor agreement with the Forest Service and the State Conservation and Forestry through the Department of Ag. So we're going to be hiring 4 new people locally. So we're pretty excited about that to provide 4 jobs for people here. We're hoping that's going to start in July. What they will be doing is going in the National Forest and marking and selling trees that are down. So it's going to help get rid of fire danger and, the diseases with pests and stuff like that. So I'm pretty excited about that. I will administer that agreement. So I'll get paid from the Forest Service to be doing the payroll and the paperwork and all that stuff for them. And then they'll have a state person who's leading the crew out there with them. We also have a thinning grant through the Conservation Commission, and that is for private landowners. So that's for Meade and Pennington County. And last year we applied for one and we got a little over $12,000. All of that has been allocated. It's a 50% cost share. All of those acres have been allocated. We're about 60% done with those, and we applied for another one this fall, and we just received another $20,000 thinning grant. So we're excited to continue with that. And just to give you an idea, here's a couple pictures of before and after one of our thinnings.
Question, Lindsay.
What?
When you said that you'd have 4 people and they'd be marking, did you say downed trees? Did you say downed trees, or will they be live trees that they're marking and taking?
They're going to be marking live trees, but they're not going to be removing them themselves. That'll be a part of the Forest Service that's doing that, I think.
Okay.
So yeah, they're coming in before like a timber sale.
Okay.
They're setting up that timber sale.
Okay.
And to clarify, those 4 employees aren't going to be paid by the county. That's through that.
Right.
That grant.
Yep. Thank you.
Any other questions for Lindsay? Thank you very much. East Side,
Thanks, Lindsay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thanks for what you do. Morning, and your name, sir?
Eldon Helms, I'm the chairman, East Pennington County Conservation District. This is a little new format for me than what I've had. We have a new district manager this year, so we're kind of in transition. Lindsay had a great presentation there. A couple things I'd like to add that soil conservation does. We also partner with Game Fish and Parks, and I'm trying to think the other one, but Department of Ag, of course. And our job is to help find our landowners or whatever funds to do projects. And basically, we've cut our budget down to the bare bones this year, so we're hoping you contribute to us a little bit and help us keep going, because we like to educate the young children and stuff in our community. We consist of mostly farm and ranch down there. We don't have the trees, I'm sorry. Just the way it works. So.
Both are important, sir.
Yeah. So.
Any questions, board?
And I don't know, did you get the handout?
We did.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I guess just to clarify, the two budgets used to have quite a disparity between east and west, and this year we kind of got them down so they're even.
Yes.
Reason why was years ago, east had a full-time district manager. Now they're both part-time. And, we kind of cut some of that fluff that was in the east one that they kept, because like any good, some government agencies don't give it away because then you'll never get back. And I think that's what they did. They just kept throwing in the same budget year after year and just giving the same amount. And then we kind of went through it with a fine comb and said, well, what's this here? Well, I think we just stuck that in there just to keep it. So
yeah.
When you said bare bones, we did kind of get them down to bare bones.
Yeah, we had some of those, like you said, that if we cut, we won't get it back.
And then Wes would come in and ask for increases, and they wouldn't get it, so they fell farther behind. So now we kind of got them both on even playing field.
And that's why when Scott requested that we put them both together, it looked like when you guys came up, we all believed in you. We weren't getting it. And Scott said, well, they used to be with us and with me helping them. And I think they need my help. And I said, I think that's a good goal.
Yeah.
So both sides do a really good job. And we appreciate everything you do.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. You folks have a great day.
The name of the district manager?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Roger Shull.
Sorry, Roger.
I'm sorry, I didn't introduce him.
Okay.
Yeah, Roger Shull.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's kind of new, so we're breaking him in slow, so.
Good to meet you, Roger.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Scotty, for helping them.
Just a note on that no-till, Commissioner Drews and Commissioner LaCroix, when we were out in Washington State, got to see an example of an area that is about 90% no-till now. 20 years ago, they were all tilling too, and they got to see what the results of that no-till creates as far as the amount of crop that you get in return and the condition of the soil that is there. It's beautiful, dark, gorgeous soil. So yeah.
The other thing they're starting too is the cover crops, which hasn't been done out here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you remember what the old summer fallow was. Well, now they're putting cover crop on and keeping so the ground's never bare.
Right, it's never bare. That's bare. Right. So wind erosion is almost to nothing now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just made it easier.
Thank you.
Okay.
You can write them if you want. Thank you. You guys ready to take a break till 12? We'll have our lunch from 10 to 11 till 12.
Sounds good.
All right. Motion to recess.
Move to recess.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. You see what I'm saying? Okay. Let's come out of recess do we have a motion, please?
Got a motion.
Second.
Motion by Drew, second by Raskic. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Let's go ahead and have John first, if that's okay. And then Gary, maybe
Surprise, John.
And Gary, if you could fill in on some of the stuff that you shared with me on the phone the other day. On the phone. Good call.
I think I have another one here. I better check.
Okay, John, your paper on insurance premium rates, and so we have an explanation and your value proposition calculator. So
Oh, yes.
These papers.
Yes, most
So
definitely.
we have an understanding of those, please, John?
Yep, my pleasure. So there's some different pieces that were added there. Actually, on the back of that, you've got 3 pages that look like that, and you have 1 page that looks like this.
Okay.
So this odd single page should be the back of your pack of that group of pages.
This one?
Yes, ma'am.
You've got this one?
You probably took that from me, too.
So it would have been, you would have received this probably just yesterday, or it wasn't part of the regular book. At least not initially.
Quit spreading out so far.
Upside
Maybe
down.
now.
It's upside down too.
Go this
Okay.
way. Okay, John.
So what I'd like to share, there was some discussion or questions about wages, benefits, kind of comparison and understanding how those play in. So this value proposition calculator is something I actually started playing with last summer and put it away. The color coding actually it's what's going to help make more sense of this. And I was going to put it on the overhead, but I didn't think that would actually project right anyway. But you'll notice on the top of this form, you've got the yellow section. That would be for a new hire employee. Okay, so the top in the center. That yellow color then coordinates with each of the new hire pieces along the left margin. So when you look at it, the actual initial wage for this is for a grade 10 position example. So the top on the left shows the actual base wage. The next one would be the SDRS retirement contribution per hour worked, if you will. So I tried to break it down on an hourly cost. You've got the health plan cost there with no colors because it depends on what they actually would pick. Single employee, employee plus one, or family coverage. So again, it shows you the dollar per hour estimate of what that cost would be on a monthly basis. The next category is personal time or sick time, if you will. And it shows you again, the yellow would be for the new hire. And the same right on down the left. So you'll see the holiday pay, vacation pay. That's the average value of each of those benefits to that employee. Now the blue section, which is in the center of each of those groupings on the left, as well as in the center, it's kind of a gray actually, but it shows you for a person that may have been in position for about 4.5 to 5 years, assuming they got one step a year. This does not take into consideration any COLAs. It's basically just base rate based upon today's pay at that level. So when you look at that person, that would be 5-year employee. It shows you again if they had single coverage for medical, employee plus one, or family, and again the categories down the left-hand side. What you'll notice as we go through this is it's very similar as far as percentages of base pay that the benefits actually make up of their total compensation. So with a grade level 10. As you go through each one of the additional pages, you'll notice they're just additional grade levels. So the center page is a grade level 16 example. The back page would be a department head example. It's a grade level 24. On a percentage basis, even though there's a slightly elevated cost for each of these categories, the percentage basis of benefits to their pay, again, proportionately is less as you get into a higher pay grade. Okay, so you'll notice that. But slightly elevated increase in total dollars, but reduced percentage towards their base total compensation. What I did in the lower right center, if you will, of the page, it shows you what our current benefits are. So sick leave is currently 8 hours per month. Holiday pay is 6.67 hours per month. Vacation varies depending on time in service. So 0 to 4 gets that 6.67, 4 to 15 gets 10, 15 plus gets 13.34 hours per month. And then again, the medical piece, this is county dollars only on the medical contributions, that we make to the employee's pay as well. So this is just an explanation and comparison, so you had an idea what the total cost was per person, per hour. For example, a new hire in a grade level 10, base pay is $16.38, but if they take family insurance, their base pay actually with benefits would be $25.87 per hour, which is about 58% roughly of their total base is made up of benefits. A lot of data, not a lot of time to look at it, but I wanted to make sure you had that. I can go through and explain that in more detail too afterwards if you'd like, but I wanted you to have an idea or a perspective of how the benefits factor into what our total expenses are per person per hour. And again, I chose a grade level 10, grade level 16, and a grade level 24, so you can see how that plays for each of those levels.
So what would be, I see this, and I see you're breaking it out. I know we usually have an average. You could figure out it's an additional $5 for benefit, total benefits per,
Sure.
you know what I'm saying?
Right, yep. So if they take just single coverage, and this is assuming they would take
Yeah.
a medical piece. If they don't take medical, our expense per employee is extremely cheap. I mean, there's no additional cost there, basically, other than life insurance, et cetera. But if they take say they take a new hire, grade level 10, takes single medical coverage, their total benefit cost, and this is factoring in vacation, holiday, and sick time, is only $5.81 an hour. Okay, so again, that would be the upper right-hand side of that first
Oh, I
category
see. You
across the
do have
top.
it down by the hour. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So yeah, I broke it out. You can see percentages,
Okay.
you can see dollars, and you can see the total pack. So we're trying to figure out, and Sandy's been working on this, so I have to say thank you, but we're trying to figure out how we can do a total compensation statement for employees so they see all of these factors that they're receiving. In past employment settings, that's been an option, but it takes a lot of behind-the-scenes work, coding and or the information system we have through the payroll process to make that possible. She received some data. She was in Colorado probably 4 weeks ago for an HR training class. And the instructor gave her an example that we could possibly use. I haven't figured out the mechanics of how we can make that possible just yet. There's a lot of data fields that have to flow into that. And it looks like it's mainly a manual process right now. But I think when you take a close look at that, again, a new hire, their base rate might only be no, I can't even read it without my glasses. Their base hourly rate is $16.38, but when benefits are factored into that, their base rate is $22.19 an hour. That's a lot. It's a big difference. So that's the piece we need to help people understand, because a lot of times they say, well, county pay is so terrible. When you factor in our benefits, it's really a good program. So.
But then wouldn't it also be fair to say, to have in there also what the employee's contribution is on some?
Oh, most definitely we could.
Don't they pay some out of it?
We could factor that in.
Okay.
This is just the expense to the
Yeah.
county is all I was trying to calculate. And then the single page that you have shows you current employee rates, premiums, if you will, as well as the county premiums. So it gives you an idea of what those are. And at the bottom of that page, it actually shows you the retiree option as well for those that qualify to stay on the program once they retire from county service.
John, I think this is all very good information. Gives us some good numbers to base things on. I think the only piece that we probably are missing that you can't provide at this point in time is adjustments that we may have during the course of the year on some of those costs, insurance costs, et cetera. Those decisions haven't been made by the carriers at this point in time to even tell you what that's going to be. So.
We most of the time, yes, sir. We'll get that from Wellmark. We'll have an updated estimate of what our premium should be in August. And then later this year for Delta Dental. Delta's already given me a possible estimate based upon claims, but again, we won't have any final numbers until August or September for both.
Very good.
Our goal here this year is to maintain current premium levels. For the county and for employees. This will be the third year that would not have been an increase then in cost. Our, not surplus, but our balance is sufficient enough that we think we can make that happen. So that's what we're working towards.
So Gary, did you have anything to share on workman's comp?
Well, the work comp, the only thing that surprised me the other day was when one came up and it showed that it was going to be a substantial increase. Mark asked the question on it. I think it was about a 55% increase, and I was just wondering where the department had received that. And because I happen to work in that field, in that arena, and I don't think the county's going to see, it's like John says, the percentages look bad, the dollar amounts are not. Mm-hmm. And so I think as we work through that, I think we're going to see that if there's any increase, it'll be very nominal. Work comp is based a lot on claims history. Mm-hmm. And Pennington County per se has had a pretty good claims history. So,
yes, sir. No, very true. And that goes back and forth. So again, to kind of explain for those that aren't well-versed with work comp, but you do an estimate of the future year's wages, total expenditure. You come back after that year has passed, and then in February or March of the following year, you do an audit of your actual wages spent, and you either get charged additional fees if you were over that amount, or you receive a credit based upon your experience if you were lower than the predicted wages. And then again, a number of other factors work into that. So not just the wages, but the experience rating you have based on claims, as well as the different employment categories. So say, for example, if we're in our state pool, if there's an elevated number of claims in any certain employment category, it'll impact us as well, even though it wasn't us that had the claims. So there's a lot of factors that play into how that's set. I'm no expert, but I've worked with it for about 15 years. I still don't feel I'm an expert, trust me.
I haven't met one yet.
I'm sure.
Thank you. Any other questions for John that we might have missed that you have on wages or workman's comp or anything for employees? Any employee questions? All righty, Miss Cindy.
Thank you.
You have a few things to share with us, Cindy, that some of the stuff that we had asked on the goal of 15%, if that was our goal, and anything else that might be helpful moving forward on this budget, Miss Cindy.
Holly is passing out
Thank you, Ms. Holly.
little information that I worked up last night and this morning, which brings us to the current means of finance that I have up on the screen. I did go back and recalculate the projected reserves, taking into account that the sheriff will be buying his bus this year, which kind of hit me in the middle of the night going, oh, I need to take that from reserves. So that will be reducing the start of where I think we're going to be looking at for reserves. And then I also took into account his new revenues that he spoke of when he was up here. And Lori Wager, the IT director, her information about she's going to be spending $150,000 less than what she had initially said. So that's what you're seeing on the new means of finance up there. Basically, those changes would make our reserves at 12.89%. In order to reach the 15% that's kind of been discussed, not actually settled on yet by the board, we would need to reduce the budget by $1,375,000. I did have a couple of suggestions, I'd say below. If the board were to use 1% of the stored CPI, that would actually increase the levy by $8.60 rather than the $4 that was originally projected. Then we would need to reduce budgets by $950,000 to reach the 15% goal. If the board chose to use the 1% stored CPI and only utilize 80% or 80,000 of the 188,000 available in the library opt-out, that would still leave the library reserve at 19%, and the levy would be $4.80. We would still need to work at cutting that budget by $950,000 to reach the 15% goal.
Okay. Thank you, Miss Cindy. Questions from Miss Cindy?
Appreciate you spending the time on these numbers, Cindy. I understand they're not easy to come up with. A lot of thoughts have to go into how you make the changes. I don't disagree with the 15%. I think the 19% that was apparently established by motion some time ago is probably higher than we need. I don't know if that magic number is 15%, but I would say that's much closer to what realistically it should be. 13% is probably too low, so I think 15% is good to shoot for.
Thank you.
I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Cindy. We'll probably have more questions, but I think we need to go through some of the other things that we have. The easy one, and I know I said this, non-mandated, I think we'll go through first because it's going to be pretty simple. I think. So we do have many non-mandated items. I don't know if you want to go by item or you just have a, motion. What's the wish of the board?
I'd be willing to make a motion on that.
Okay.
I'd make a motion that we give approval to each of those with the exception of the works.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Next would be the FTEs, if that's where if the board's willing to do the FTEs next. We'll start at the top. And you can either deny or approve today, or suggestions. You do have this sheet. Make sure you have that. So some do have some revenue sources or have suggestions on that. So first, we do have 911 dispatch, and they do have 100% funded for 116,927. They do need 2 dispatchers. Do we have a motion or discussion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Move approval by LaCroix, second by DeSanto. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Stop. Here, you can have this right.
Madam Chair, just to clarify, as we're going through this, this could change.
Yes.
Later, okay. I just want to clarify that this isn't, right now, we're just trying to get a feel of where we're at on it, okay.
Yep, so Cindy has somewhere to work from.
Yep, okay.
And then, and I think the department heads have been with us long enough, they kind of know that, but that is a very good point, Commissioner LaCroix. Next, we have highway for mechanic, 65,519 would be the number. Is there a motion or discussion or any questions for Mr. Joe Mueller?
Move to approve.
Moved by Ross Connect.
Second.
Second by LaCroix. Discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Next is a HR generalist, 59,120. Do we have a motion? It does say on the side plus 1,900 computer phone. Am I missing? That's in the 59? Thank you.
No.
No.
It's on top of.
Top of the 59,120.
Okay, so you'd be 59 and 125 and 1,900, or 120, sorry. What's the total, Holly?
6120.
6120. Motion or discussion? Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion that we add HR generalist to HR.
Motion by Drews.
Second.
Second by LaCroix. And is that with the 1,900?
Yes, it is.
Sir. Seconder.
Total is 6120.
Seconds in approval of that? Mr. LaCroix?
What's that?
You're in approval of the 1,900 with it?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Okay. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Next is the building inspector, ordinance enforcement officer. First, we'll do the building inspector. Is there a motion? Or discussion?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner LaCroix.
I understand we're just trying to do a provisional budget and may want to add that in there, but with the discussion that I heard through the course of the budget hearing, I'd probably wait on that because I think I would like to have that funding for another part.
I agree.
Would like it funded for what?
From the budget discussions, I think we could get better use using that money in the attorney's office. So I'm not going to support that part right now as far as the inspector.
Okay.
Per the budget discussions that we had.
PJ here? PJ, will you come up for just a sec? So at this time, PJ, if I have the understanding, and this is my opinion, I think, is that you don't have, on the comprehensive plan, you have to run through a bunch of ordinances and different things, and that will probably take you, I know it's been over a year on a couple of our things, that just one ordinance. I do believe that this is something we need. I'm in the understanding as well. I think that's where Mr. LaCroix is going, that we believe that this is something that needs to be done, but not right now. Because we have time, not because it's not right now, we don't have the funding. It's, I think you got some other stuff to run through before we move to that next step of the building inspector. Basically codes and everything else that need to be done. Any discussion on that, PJ?
No, I know we talked about it during the budget hearing previous in the week, and we are more than happy to give that up this year to help the state's attorney with that civil attorney.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
And the scanner as well, was that, they also motion with it, Lloyd?
No, I was just talking about
Okay.
the
So
building inspector.
we do have a,
To approve the scanner.
okay. There's been a motion on the scan, let's do the first one. For the building inspector, there was a motion by LaCroix, if I'm correct. No building inspector, was there a second?
Second.
Second by DeSanto. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. The second part is the scanner person for 18281. Mr. DeSanto made a motion.
Move to approve because it can be used in multiple departments.
Okay. I'm going to second for discussion, just for discussion on Commissioner DeSanto, if you would, kind of tell us what you're thinking on the scanner.
Well, what I'm thinking on the scanner is PJ had explained to us that person could be possibly used in different departments if need be. So it's going to be spread out amongst multiple departments, which would be a benefit, and it needs to get done. So
okay,
why I would recommend we accept that part-time position.
Madam Chair.
Discussion?
Yeah, I agree that, that getting those files in an electronic version is important, but we also discussed exploring the possibilities of volunteers.
And I second for discussion, but I also truly believe that we have enough areas. I think there needs to be more discussion in how many areas might be using that person, and it might be a multi-use type position. But I think we need to have more discussion on it with the other departments and see who all use them and would use them. And it might be not a part-time by then. So at this point, I believe for this year, maybe see if we can utilize the volunteer system. And if that becomes an issue, definitely look at it again for next year and make sure that we have the understanding at that point, if people are using people to scan their documents, and it's that important, which we know it's important, I should say it like that, that we have someone that's more of a full-time if we have that much scanning that needs to be done in Pennington County.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Drews.
If I remember what PJ said, I think PJ said it would take a half-time person about 3 years to even catch up with the material that they have to scan. So I don't think that this person would be available probably to any other departments for quite some period of time. I don't disagree. I think that, that material needs to be scanned. All those records need to be scanned. And I suspect that Donna in the Register of Deeds office has items too that probably need to be scanned. And so I think we need to look at that for the future. But I also agree that if we can search out and see if we can do something, getting something started with volunteers first, it'd be the best.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
LaCroix.
I'm going to throw this out here. I'm just thinking about this after listening to some of the discussion. We talked about the volunteers, and I remember the discussion how important this documentation is, that it's be consistent being the same person. Couldn't this part-time scanning position incorporate some volunteers? Then you got a constant person there to be able to do full-time scanning to get it done quick. You know what I'm saying? You have a half-time, you get somebody trained in, some volunteers to do the other half-time. They get done quicker. The benefits I see of that is, number one, you get somebody in the equalization office that sees what's going on and could also be, if an opening comes open, you get some training. Just a thought. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on something like that.
Well, Commissioner LaCroix, I think with that discussion, you're right, because PG's, what are going to be the volunteers? And number one, you're going to have a trainee, and it's going to have to be, so you're right. You're going to have a trainee, a person training people, and they just don't have that time.
No.
So, good point made, and I'm glad we had the discussion. I think you're right. So I think if we start with that part-time and then see where that goes and have that person training people and running the volunteers, good point. So.
The motion on the floor is for
approval of part-time. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Okay. And that was by Lloyd or DeSanto and Deb. Okay. And then caseworker for the Public Defender's Office.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner?
I'd move for approval.
Second.
Is Eric Witcher here? I have a question.
Eric is not. Shannon was supposed to be here, but I don't see him.
Okay. I have a few questions on that. Because it says on the attorney, is that both of them? Because it says none on the bottom. After the second, there's a caseworker, 141565. Then attorney 1, none.
They asked for.
So that's a combined total, Miss Holly, of 141?
Yes, I did not hear back from Shannon to break out the individual numbers by position.
So do you see what I'm saying? So you're approving both with the 141. You're not approving just one. So for me, I want it broke down before I believe they do need the caseworker.
If you want to continue that or just table that for a few minutes, I'll go see if I can get a hold of him.
Move to table.
Second.
There's been a motion to table and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries. Holly, we'll do them at the bottom. Okay, next is, we have 5 attorneys for the state's attorney. Did we have these in order? Because he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in order. Are these in the order in which he asked for them in importance?
Okay, they're not all attorneys though.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
These
5
positions.
employees. Yeah.
Yes, sir. These positions, he did have them in an order, and I do have it probably on my state's attorneys, but I didn't break that out. Looks like the diversion was first, caseworker second, civil secretary third, and I didn't write what the fourth was, and criminal lawyer was the 5th.
Am I working?
So I think when we're looking at this, they are in order of what he thinks is his priority.
Are you looking at the list that's in the book?
Yes, where he broke it out for us. I mean, I wrote it down. He didn't put it in there. He just said it to us. And then I wrote it down, and Holly actually put it in the order that he said, Commissioner LaCroix.
I'm going by this one.
I'm sorry. You don't have this one, sir. You guys should all have that on.
Oh, I'm sorry. This one? Okay.
Yes, sir. Right, Gary?
Yep.
You got yours?
Do I have mine? Yeah, I stole it back from you.
You had that in your own thing. Okay, so we'll go through these one at a time. I do have some questions. Is the state's Mr. Vargo here either? Oh, Miss.
He was going to be gone, but yeah.
Michelle,
Chair.
if you'd like to come up.
Okay. Do you want to do that before you have a motion?
Yes, just a couple of questions, and I don't know if she can answer them. So maybe they can. Yeah, they can. Your names, please.
Michelle Hoffman, State's Attorney's Office. Susan Shepard, Office Manager for the State's Attorney's Office.
Good morning or afternoon, ladies. Just a couple of questions. When I'm looking at the budgets, State's Attorney had in 2018 gave back $403,775, and then the salaries were 111,489. So when I'm looking at this, and you guys probably know because you work in the offices, so a lot of times, tell me how when you say you're 4 short or 6 short in there, and then you have salaries left at 111, but you don't. To me, I'm looking at this, and I'm probably looking at it wrong. How do you have 4 short and still only have 111 left? Being that your state's attorneys get how much per hour? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I do see what you're saying.
The numbers, and that's why I said I didn't get the numbers.
So this year we are that many short.
4?
Right now we're 6 short.
Okay.
We are 6 short. But when you're looking at like last year's numbers, is that what you were saying, that last year we turned back?
Well, yeah, because I think last year someone said you were 4 short. Were you 6 short last year too?
No, we weren't. Last year we were we were probably only 1 or 2 short by the end of last year. So now we are down 6. In the last year, we have lost
A total of 6.
Yeah.
Okay.
But most of those were this year.
They were this year?
Yes.
Okay. I lost my train of thought. So I guess I can do this off the dais without having to do this up here. I just need more information for me. I'll probably say no today, but I've done this before, only till I see the numbers and talk to Mr. Vargo. So I can always change my mind based on how we do things. Do I think we need these? I just want to see, bottom line, what is the most, again, is he's got it in priority.
Right.
And if that's 2 or 3 for me. So,
Madam Chair,
okay, Commissioner DeSanto.
what numbers did you need? Because I have some numbers written down here maybe you didn't write down.
Okay, so what we have is your budget and expenditure balances in your book.
Yep.
And in 18, so they would have been short 2 in 18. And their salaries they turned back was 111,489. You don't have that. I had Holly break that out, that 111,489, because I wanted to know what was on salaries. So based on what we did for, if it was all other expenditures, it would have been different. But total amount for 18 was 403,775 that they gave back in 18, and 111,489 were salaries. So if you base that on 2 state's attorneys and what those costs are, and they were short at the end of the year, you're not paying state's attorneys $50,000 each or 50. See what I'm saying?
Right.
So I don't want to.
I totally get what you're saying.
And I didn't ask the question ahead of time, so that's very unfair.
I do think that some of that was that we ended up paying overtime and hiring some part-time people to try to come in and fill in. So I do think that that's a part of it, but I can't answer that entirely.
And that's why I said I don't want to say that there's anything going wrong, because there isn't. Right. I just didn't understand the numbers.
Right.
So, okay.
Okay, I don't have the numbers to help you with that.
And there's nothing going on there, guys. I want to know how that budget kind of works, and I should have asked ahead of time, but some of this stuff doesn't come to mind once you start seeing more of the papers and all the numbers.
Right, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, question.
Commissioner LaCroix.
No, we got that stuff. My question is, and I'm sorry that Margo's not here to be able to answer these. The diversion caseworker, we got that. Okay, then we got civil secretary. Where's that other one? And a criminal secretary. So we got requests for. I know you're trying to stay in one, but I want to see which ones kind of work together or one. I mean, if you have one diversion caseworker, you're going to need civil secretary, whether you get another civil attorney or not. You're going to need a criminal secretary, whether you get another. The priority is, I think what I'm getting at is, I think some of these secretaries, from my understanding, do a great deal of work gathering and presenting the information to the lawyers, but can they, by adding those off the back, would that assist if you're still short attorneys?
Michelle Hoffman, State's Attorney's Office. And Susan can add to this. I think in the criminal realm, the secretaries are, they're essential. They're processing, the complaints that are coming in. They're moving forward the criminal complaints, the indictments, that type of thing. In the civil world, it's a little bit different. But in our civil world, those secretaries primarily are working with abuse and neglect and the juvenile. So I guess they're essential in those worlds. So I'm not sure. It depends on how you're separating out civil versus criminal.
Yeah, I guess what I was getting at is I understood they're titled secretary, but they do a lot of the file preparation, the gathering of the information, and if anything, they'd assist more in getting the work prepped for the attorneys.
Well, the civil secretary that's needed that person is needed to assist our existing attorneys who handle the abuse and neglect, as well as the juvenile petitions. And so with regard to the FTE for the civil attorney, that civil secretary is really separate, because the civil attorney requesting is the attorney that we hope will allow us to work with the board as well as the planning department in reviewing and amending our ordinances.
I think you hit it right there. What you're saying is the criminal one would be assisting the existing one, that because of the load right now, if you got another civil attorney, you're going to need a civil secretary to go with?
No, the civil and criminal secretaries are needed now to assist us in handling our current caseload. Those requests for those two positions aren't really tied to whether we have additional attorneys.
Okay, yeah, that's exactly. It took me a while to get there, but okay.
Me too.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner DeSanto.
Michelle, I've got notes here, and maybe I'm reading them correctly or maybe I'm not, but I'm seeing civil attorney to replace part-time attorney at $67,000 a year. Then I have underneath that, and it might be in conjunction with, I have number 1, diversion caseworker, number 2, civil attorney, number 3, criminal secretary, number 4, diversion secretary, and number 5, criminal lawyers. Well, I have offset by $40K grant.
Okay.
There's a grant that we can receive if we hire one of these people?
If you hire the criminal secretary, the cost of that FTE would be offset by a VOCA VAWA grant that is available. However, if we are not provided that FTE, then we won't receive that grant.
Got to get the civil attorney to get the civil secretary.
Not the civil attorney, that we need the criminal secretary.
Okay.
It's the criminal secretary we must have that FTE to be eligible for the VOCA VAWA grant.
Then under the next note I have, number 4, will reduce overtime by $62,000. Is that the civil attorney that's going to reduce the overtime?
That's again the two secretaries, the $60,350. That's the overtime that we'd be saving by having a FTE for civil secretary and an FTE for the criminal secretary. So Mark just separated out that overtime and apportioned it as an offset to each of those FTEs.
Okay. And this might answer my question too, if you look at salaries. Cindy, just one question. Is the salaries this year already included the 5 FTEs or not yet?
Yes.
Okay, on the salary page? Is that 3829.833, is that included with the 5 FTEs? I got it circled on there from 19 to this year. That's with 5 FTEs? Okay, guys, that's why I wasn't understanding. So guys, some of these are funded. So the increase with the 5 FTs from last year, the 19 to this year, is $61,249. That's with 5 FTs. That's what you meant, Holly. The rest is paid for, basically. So for some reason, when I was looking at the numbers, it was increasing this budget $279,800, but I did not take away, which I did see on the side. To be fair, that's why I said I needed to talk to Vargo, how much is being subsidized. So basically, with those 5 FTEs, they are only being $61,249. So I'll take back what I was going to say on the no, because now I found the answers. For me, if I don't have an answer, guys, it's not because I'm going to say in the final budget no. It means I'm not understanding and I have to go talk to your department. So I apologize for that. Okay. Motions or more questions, discussion? We'll go through one at a time, or you can take one off, keep one.
I think you're on the right track. Do one at a time, and with that information, this is just preliminary, so we can.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So let's go through one diversion caseworker. Do we have a motion, please?
Move for approval.
Moved by LaCroix, second by Drews. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. One civil attorney.
Move for approval.
Moved by LaCroix,
Second.
second by Drews. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. One civil secretary.
Move for approval.
Moved by LaCroix,
Second.
second by Ross Connect. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. One criminal secretary.
Move for approval.
Moved by LaCroix,
Second.
second by Ross Connect. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. One criminal attorney.
Move
Motion?
to deny.
Move to deny by DeSanto.
Yes.
Deny. Is there a second? Is there a substitute motion?
I will make a second for discussion.
Okay.
Second for, okay.
Move to approve by Drews, second by LaCroix. For a substitute, discussion on that motion, please.
I guess I'm looking at this as the preliminary with, I'm going to gather some more information on this too, because if I'm going to, I understand where Mark's going, but if I'm going to deny one, I'm going to deny another one for another one. But for preliminary purposes of this budget, I think I'd like to see those numbers, how everything comes out, and then I can go back and reevaluate.
And I agree with Commissioner LaCroix. If I was going to cut some of the budget, it would probably, because of that 61,249, it would probably, and maybe that's his looking at it himself and what he would do as well. I'll probably agree today, but that's something where I might be looking at a cut for later as well. But today, I want to see what those numbers look like with that in there. So I'm not against what you're saying, Commissioner DeSanto.
So let's hear Gary's substitute motion.
His is to approve.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed?
Nay.
One no with Commissioner DeSanto. Motion carries. Okay. So we have all the FTEs in there, so that'll give Cindy some food for thought today on those numbers. That's my word today, I think.
Madam Chair and Commissioner, since we're going through these, I think we could go back for purpose of the Public Defender's Office. Or do you still want to wait and see if they can get?
I was unsuccessful in finding anybody, but with talking with John, the entry-level attorney is gonna be at 65,000, and the balance would be for that caseworker, which is about 47,000.
40 what?
47,515.
Do we want to bring that off the table, or do we want to make sure he's here for discussion? And see if he comes, or somebody comes down. Anybody up there?
I wasn't able to find anybody. I've got to call into Shannon, so hopefully
Okay.
he comes.
I'd move to take it off the table.
Okay, motion to take it off the table by Commissioner LaCroix. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ross Connect. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
The reason why, Madam
Motion
Chair,
carries. Sorry.
the reason why I do that is because I support the caseworker, so I'd like to go on that.
Okay,
And
motion. Let's do the caseworker, Commissioner LaCroix.
Okay.
Okay, motion on caseworker, 47.5. Motion by LaCroix, second by DeSanto. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Let's do the attorney for 65. Discussion or motion?
I'll make the motion for approval with discussion.
Okay, motion by LaCroix for approval. Second? By anybody? Okay, motion fails. Do we have a substitute? I'll make a motion to deny.
Second.
Second by Drews. Any discussion?
Discussion.
Oh, go ahead.
Go
Okay.
ahead, Lloyd.
Commissioner
You might
LaCroix?
say the same thing as you said, since we were in the same meeting.
I would, for the purpose of being a provisional, getting to the provisional budget, I'd like to see it approved because we just did the same thing for the criminal. I hate to offset one without the other. That's the only reason why I suggested that we do the, approve it so then we know, see what those numbers are, and when we come back, we can also have additional conversations between now and the provisional budget to, we can eliminate it or not, but I'd like to see that number in there, and if it can't be proved to me it needs to be in there, then I think we could take it out at a later date. That's my thoughts.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner DeSanto.
I would tend to lean to agree with Lloyd on that. However, I think we're in discussion in the meetings that Lloyd and I are attending that could eliminate the need for that additional one attorney if we come to some conclusions in the near future.
That's true.
But having heard what Lloyd just had to say as far as giving Cindy better numbers to work with so that we can see the whole picture, I guess I would move to approve the attorney as well.
There's already a motion. Right now, there's a
Motion,
denial. It failed, so we can kill the denial, and then you can go back to the original motion once this, and make a different motion if you'd like.
Okay.
Okay, so on the floor is denial. Any other discussion on denying? If not, all in favor say aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Motion fails. So let's go back to the original motion, and that would be to approve.
Move
All in
to
favor
approve.
say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Good point, Commissioner LaCroix.
Point LaCroix.
Okay. So next, we go to current CPI and stored CPI. I think it'd be easier to break those up of who wants to take the regular CPI and what we should do with the stored CPI at this point, if that's okay.
Madam Chair, I would suggest a motion that we take the CPI. I'm not sure, from some of the numbers that I've seen, I'd like a separate motion probably. I'd like to see it with the current CPI, take that and see what it would do with, I believe, what was it, Cindy, 1%? I'd like to see.
So you have a motion and a question? Okay, we'll take the motion first and then have you explain your question. So first, let's do the motion. Motion to take the current CPI.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Only 1%.
On taking the current CPI of, I have the numbers right here.
With 1%. Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Okay.
I'm seeing the options, and that's what I'd asked from Cindy. So I'm looking at the motion board would have to choose a 1% stored CPI. So I'd like to see the number with 1% stored CPI and with the current CPI. Because you could.
Let's do it like this. Let's take the current CPI.
Okay.
And then let's go through a couple scenarios that maybe she can run through that you like to see with the stored CPI and some other stuff. Can we do it that way?
Yeah.
Okay, so motion to take the CPI. All in favor?
CPI?
Current, yes, yes, ma'am, sorry.
That's great.
Okay, and that includes the growth, right, Cindy? So it'd be state certified CPI and current year growth? Do we have to have a motion for growth? Okay, sorry. So it's 981,957, if I'm correct? Is state certified CPI. So we're making that motion by LaCroix. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Drews. Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Now, for Cindy's sake, let's take some scenarios that we believe that this board would like to see. I don't know if they need to be in motions at this point, but she can run some numbers of what we think. She did, let's see, where's your,
One of the numbers we don't have, Madam Chair,
yes, sir?
one of the numbers we don't have on the sheet that we received, this supplement, is if we are using stored CPI and current CPI, what the effect on the levy would be. Was it 1480?
I think it's on your means of finance, is it, Cindy, if we took both?
Yeah,
It
I
should
think
show that?
I think it's 14.
Look on your means of finance, am I correct?
1440 per 100,000.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That would be if we used all of the stored CPI.
Right.
Right.
On the memo that you got this afternoon from Holly, it explains that if we use 1% of the stored CPI, that the levy would increase by $8.60 per 100,000. So that's using current year CPI, the 2.4.
Okay.
Plus the 1% stored.
That's the paper you just handed us?
Yes.
If you look at the bottom, that's why I'm saying maybe we go through scenarios that you'd like to see. If the board, would you choose the 1% store CPI, 409,150 in new tax revenue. Effect on the levy would be an increase of $8.60 per 100,000. Budget would need to be reduced by $950 to reach the 15% goal. That brings us to a question. Are we going for the 15% goal at this time? Is that
I believe that would be the assumption.
It sounds
I'll make that motion.
that's where we're going.
Should we, that was one of the first things I was thinking that we probably should have
Yep.
voted on to agree on.
Well, I think we could make that in our motions with what they're looking at, Lloyd, with the 15% in case anybody decides they need to change that goal of 15% with something. So when you do your scenarios, put your scenario, if that's where you want to go with your 15% reserve at your bottom line. So there is two scenarios here. The other one, the first one I read, the second one is if the board would choose to use the 1% CPI and use 80,000 of the available library out, the total levy would increase by $4.80 per 100,000. This would result in the projected library reserve being at 19.04% at the end of 2020. Budget will need to be reduced $950 to reach the 15% goal. So, Ms. Cindy, could you, what would that do if we use the library reserve? Have we used it before? Kind of explain, if you could, to me on the library's reserve, what that means, and if you believe that being at 19.4% at the end of the year is good, and what does their reserve need to be for us? Because we're finding 15% on our overall budget.
Correct.
But I'm not an accountant, but I do want to make sure those library reserves are going to be still adding up for the future, so we're not coming back or the citizens aren't having to opt out.
Okay, we already have the current opt-out for $188,200, I believe is what the current opt-out is. So we wouldn't have to come back and do another opt-out. And I've not been in on the library contract discussions. I don't know exactly who has been in on that and what has been discussed for keeping reserves for the library for future years.
Commissioners, several years ago, we changed the library contracts. Before, they were just able to come in and ask for a random amount. The one that was challenging for the county was the Rapid City Public Library contract, and that was set at 14.5% of operational costs, while the city could go in and set whatever budget amount they wanted, and the county was stuck paying that percentage. Whereas now the contracts are flat and they're increased every year by the state certified CPI. So we have a lot more control over the increases in the library. The reserve has recovered over the last couple of years. It would be my recommendation not to reduce that opt-out, just for that simple fact of keeping that going forward, so we don't run into the same problem that we did before.
And then do what we did with county fire or anything else, because we don't know the result of what's happening.
Correct.
Once we reduce that number and then come back and go, okay, we don't have enough.
Okay. Madam Chair,
Just wanted to discuss that part of it. Okay. Commissioner LaCroix.
after hearing that, I think on our part, taking the CPI, we got a motion on that. But I would make a motion to take 1% of the stored CPI, and I can explain later on why.
And it's a good way to start. And then your budget would be reduced by $950 to reach that 15% reserve goal.
Yeah.
Is that your goal, Commissioner?
So it'd be $8.60 per thousand then?
$8.60.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is that a
Okay,
motion?
there's been a motion.
That was a motion.
I'll second that.
There's been a motion by LaCroix and second by Ross Connect. Discussion on that motion. Anything, Cindy, that you believe on that motion would be helpful for that $950 for where we could move for suggestions? Commissioner DeSanto?
To clarify on what Holly just suggested, Holly, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were not referring to not using the 80,000 of the library fund. You were just saying, let's keep the reserve at the 19.04, correct?
Correct. The library opt-out intact. And Cindy and I were just discussing that, and I apologize. I may be incorrect in looking at that. We need to look at that law again. I thought once an opt-out goes down, you can never go back to the original amount of the opt-out, and Cindy's saying that's not necessarily right. So, yes, I was speaking to that 80. So
Because I would make a substitute motion that we use that second option to reduce the burden on the taxpayers.
And that's why I was saying, and I'll second that, because I'd like to see all the scenarios. So I don't know if, we voted on the first one.
No,
I don't
we never voted on.
Okay, so maybe it's not really a vote on this. It's, I don't think we have to vote on everyone unless that's our final, if I'm correct, Holly. What I think Cindy's looking for is give me what options you want to look at and how you're getting there and what that does to our budget and what's that bottom line. Am I correct, Board?
Madam Chair, to know that you're going to use the 1% CPI and to know how much of the opt-out you want to use would be helpful in a motion so that I know which direction I'm going.
Okay, I would, in my motion, I would include use 1% of stored CPI and only use 80,000 of the available library opt-out. For the total levy would increase by $480 per 100,000.
Okay, and then what we're saying then is we're going to make a motion for each scenario we need? Because we have a motion on the floor on the first one, right?
Again, this is, well, I hate to get in the discussion when he's got a motion and not a second.
I seconded it.
Oh, you
so
did?
I did.
The only reason, I think we can do both. She's just looking for the direction. One of the directions is the 1% storage CPI, which is the most important one that she's looking at. And the second one is how much out of that library fund. She could come back to us in a week and say, after some research, and say, I would suggest not taking that. And we'd be right back to the original motion.
Okay.
Madam
But
Chair.
I think for the purpose of,
all of them are original, meaning, okay, so what I'm saying is, Holly, do we always motion everything we want for a scenario?
not necessarily scenarios, but we need clear direction from this board because the department heads are going to have to go back and do work, and we don't want everybody not knowing clear motion of the board of what you're looking for.
And my bottom line is, Ms. Holly, is that then you're still short of 950 on each one. So I guess where that goal
That's
is.
something that the board has to give direction on, is what you want the department heads to do to address the 950.
And in the past, or what worked really good last year, I believe, maybe I'm wrong, Commissioner LaCroix and DeSanto, is to take it to the department heads, which we had talked about before, and see where they believe that 950 in their budgets, that they would like that to be reduced. But we have to say, I mean, how did we get to the 950 and how much did we have them take off of each budget? Or are we doing it through some other scenario? How did we get to go in your budget and say 1%, go in your budget and say 2%?
Well, basically at this point, you're telling the department heads what you're willing to take, meaning the current year's CPI, a certain percentage of the stored CPI. If that's what the board's willing to take at this point,
okay,
that's what we need in motion form. And then Cindy will find out, based on all the changes, what number we're at.
Yeah.
If it's the 950, then the next direction of the department heads is going to be, okay, guys, go back and tighten up and see what you can make up of this dollar amount.
But we don't have to do that part today of the 950. We just need to check the scenario.
Well, we're gonna do that part.
Essentially, that's what you're doing.
Essentially, that's gonna be the last position
You gotta
today,
work
or
off that
direction
number.
today, is department heads have to go back and do work, because you only have 2 more meetings to approve the provisional budget.
So
The bottom line is, if you have either two of those areas, it's still 950.
Yep.
Is the bottom line. And that we need to figure out where we're going with that 950, because both those scenarios come up the same amount.
Correct.
Okay,
And-
sorry.
Madam Chair, normally, the way the budget was presented this year was different than we've done in the past, because we wanted to start out with the CPI and the 2 steps, because we spent majority of like today just discussing that.
Yep.
And so what we're doing now is good. It's good work. We're setting where we want. The reason why I'm supporting the 1% now is because later when we have to cut 1% out of our reserves, later when we come back, we are going to have to make some decisions on some other cuts. And I believe taking 1% of that reserve is going to be our part of that sacrifice. So,
Right.
I mean, I'm just giving you a little insight of what I'm thinking, because this board has a history of not taking reserves, stored CPI.
Yes.
Not reserves, stored CPI.
Stored CPI.
So, I mean, that's part of the give on this board, but we're not to that point yet. But
Right.
I can explain later when we get there.
Okay. Any other discussion? So we had that second motion. She's going to take a look at that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Miss Cindy, any direction that you're misdirected in? That we need help with?
I think we have a good direction to,
Start.
obviously calculating in that 1% stored on top, which I did. And now we do know the bottom line is we need to go back, or the department heads you guys need to give them direction to go back and figure out where we can come up with that 950,000.
Okay.
And Madam Chair,
Commissioner DeSanto.
Cindy, do you want that in a percentage across the board, or do you want that in just leaving it up to the
Department heads.
to the departments to find areas where they can see how much they can cut?
I think to start with, that's a good idea, to let the departments go back. Now they know what we have to work with, and if they want to come in and talk to me about, hey, what percentage of my budget would that be if we broke it down, I can do that. I can work with the departments on that to figure it out, and then hopefully between all the departments, we can come to that number.
That would be my
think-
suggestion.
And I think Commissioner DeSanto, you're right. For some reason, I kept thinking that we decided to go back and cut 2, but they came back and said, this is what we need. Am I correct?
Last year, the board gave direction for 1.97%.
Right.
Okay.
A cut across the board.
But this year, Cindy, to me, it makes more sense to say, okay, I'll do 2. You work with them and each department and decide at that point, we need 950, as you department heads know, we're gonna need some help from this board, instead of us going and designated, because some departments is a lot different on 2% or 1.9 or whatever we do than others. So I want to make sure when we do it, it's going to make sense instead of say 2% across the board.
Madam Chair.
Mr. LaCroix.
I'm just reliving some stuff from the last couple, but I think this is a great idea, but I don't think it's going to be a perfect thing because there's still disagreement in how that comes out. So I mean, that's a good idea that we let them work on it first, but that may come to the scenario that it creates hard feelings and we may not get that. We may have to come back and do it ourselves.
That is correct.
So I mean,
I think we all create those hard feelings, but
give them the opportunity.
Listen to you.
I think giving them the opportunity is very
sir.
good before it comes back to us. If they can't make the decision, then we'll make it for them.
That's kind of what my point was, is that's obvious, that we're going to give the department heads the opportunity, see what they can do, and then if they can't meet it, we have to do a percentage across the board, which is not as appealing as just having everybody figure out where they can cut.
Well, I'll follow up on that, Mark.
Okay.
Percentage-wise, when we say just give a percentage of some budgets, it's devastating. On others, it's nothing. They're willing to agree to that. You know what I'm saying? But if you have a $30 million budget and say take 1% thing, but you take someone who's already came to us and reduced it down to where they actually saved us money, and you tell them to take another 1% off their budget, it could be done.
That's not what I'm suggesting.
Okay.
Okay.
We're not going to penalize the departments that make the cut in the first place if we have to come up with a higher percentage.
Okay.
All right. So are you directed? Okay.
I'm perfectly fine with that. I will send out an email to the departments to let them know that that's the direction that we need to move.
And then when do we, so they have some direction of when we meet next and when we have the next meeting, do we have that set? So we have a timeline for them to figure out that 950?
I'll work with Cindy on setting the deadlines.
And then you'll send that to us. Thank you, Ms. Holly.
Did we vote on my motion?
We did, sir.
We still got
No, we didn't.
first motion, don't we?
We did both. Did we do both, Kara?
We voted on both.
Yes, we did.
Okay, all right.
Okay. So next is funding source of 100,000 in IT for security system, general fund, or cumulative building.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner?
I think from the light of the last meeting, accumulated building fund was already going to put in 150,000. So I think the other 100,000 probably needs to come out of general fund.
Okay. Is that a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you go over that again, Madam Chair?
100's coming out of general fund and 150's coming out of a cumulative building.
Cumulative building.
Okay. Instead of IT. It's coming out of general fund, which isn't the same, but okay. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries.
Seconded that.
Yeah.
LaCroix made that.
I made the motion. I didn't hear a second either.
Oh,
I'll second it.
I thought DeSanto did,
Terry
sorry.
second.
Okay. And then fire administration for general fund or fire reserves.
I'll make a motion to take it out of fire reserve.
Second.
Explain that, Miss Cindy, if you take it out of fire reserve.
We have no reserves left, but then we work on
I'm gonna say, for me, I'll let her answer first. Okay. I don't get the motion.
I had to have a discussion with Jerome when we first came in because I thought yesterday that he was talking that he needed another 50,000 on top of the 279,949 that he had requested, and that includes the 50,000 from my understanding.
Jerome, you want to come up here? This is the scenario.
our Jerome Harvey County Fire. We given 4 options, and the fourth, or the third option was to continue to manage between what the fire tax has and between the reserve fund, and that's what the auditors explained to me, that we can do that we can continue to manage as the fire service board between the current fire tax and the reserve fund to meet our needs.
Okay.
So what's that mean?
He can make it with the reserves
this year.
This year.
Okay,
If you look at this means of finance, at the end of 2020, we're looking at having $49,404 more than what's needed to meet 19% that had been set in the past. So we would be sitting at a 36.65% reserve going into 2021.
so his cash ending would be, and we went through this, would be 129.06. Did you understand that?
So,
Jerome?
Yes.
And then you're getting with Cindy afterwards, so we know how to do some of that.
Yes, ma'am.
So the 2020 budget's 279,941. 2020 revenue is 31,450. 2020 tax is 230,187. Estimated at 12.3 would leave you 102,594. Did you get that? Took me a couple times. Any questions, Jerome?
No, I'm good. We'll meet with the auditor and make sure everything's clear.
Okay, and so the levy is at 0.85?
Yes.
And so you talked about something about how you start, once you take that levy, because it used to be higher, once you take that levy and try to raise it again, it's almost impossible. So if we wanted to raise the levy other than opt out, how did you?
That's the only way that you can raise that levy is, of course, every year by the CPI, any new growth in that area. And what you run into with fire is that as the city's annex property, that takes away from value that he has to tax against. So that's why we keep going, becoming a little bit smaller every year too.
Well, because less and less areas are in, like you said, are going to be in Pennington County because they're getting annexed in. But I still think we should put some, not 50,000, but we should put some money in their reserves and start so they have more operating. You got 470 guys in that fire service, and I still believe that we could do better. As Pennington County for what we do, I know the citizens do a opt out, or we have raised through their taxes, but I still think they need more money in their reserves and start building them a little bit up again. And then once we get to that point, they used to have higher reserves and were taken out. And that's where that money, once you lowered that levy and took those reserves, took them down to 0.85. That's not sustainable.
Totally agree.
So if it's not sustainable, then it makes sense to start in some of our general fund through us is to start putting money in that general fund, or from our general fund into that reserve to raise it back up.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner.
I know it's kind of seemed like that I come across kind of cold on the firefighters, but with the motion on the floor, I agree because this had come to us. We've had warning for the last 3 years, and I'm not throwing blame anywhere. We talked about the opt-out, and I know the volunteer firefighters all work full-time, the board, and do things part-time. And I was saying to Mark the other day when we were up here, at least at this meeting, it seemed like the last 2 years there was a warning, you need to opt out. And so that's where my direction was going when I listened to this. But at our last budget hearing, I at least heard some honesty and some straight talk about, quite frankly, the opt-out is not a good time right now. And I just need to know what the direction that we're going to make a good decision. If the opt-out is not the answer to the problem right now, then I want to know what the solution is to get us by to where that is. You know what I'm saying?
I know
And,
exactly what you're saying.
and I believe taking the reserves right now, the reason for that is because when I go to the constituents or the people out there who say, we've used everything. This is what we got to do. You know, come to this board. It's been used up. Now we're going to have to take 50,000 out of the general fund and put it in there because we've done everything. I think that goes to the board that way and it comes to us. I definitely get what Deb's saying. General fund should, you know, but from where we were 2 years ago to now, I think I kind of agree. And next year I would be more than willing to look at it as we discussed.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner
I thought we discussed yesterday the possibility of taking on the responsibility of workman's comp.
No, we can't.
We can't do that?
That's state, right? Cindy?
For the workman's comp, we're mandated to cover those. Isn't that what you
Yeah, the state statute is clear about that. The only thing that we had suggested to you is the office would continue to manage that, but the funding would come from your regular workers' compensation fund instead of from the fire fund. The office would continue to manage it no matter what.
And Cindy,
Just a suggestion.
tell me what you said on legally that we couldn't do that?
Because we have a fire fund, and I have not checked with the Department of Legislative Audit on that yet. We might have to do an operating transfer from the general fund in order to cover that, not actually pay it out of the general fund. But I can find the answer to that too.
So for me, it's a no-brainer to start building their reserves. Whether they opt out later or not, they need the money. We're using their reserves to cover their fund at this point so they can survive, and we keep doing that. So we can do 10 each year, or we can do 50 in the next couple, or just say, okay, you guys are doing an opt-out. We're putting it on them every year, basically that we need to opt out. We're also, I understand how much, here's where I'm going. How much do we fund career firemen in the cities or in Rapid City? And they do get some funding through different entities, you know, that add up to their services as well. But I keep saying this budget is $279,000. You got 470 guys. They get fire districts, they get county fire, but add that up. Add all those numbers up and see what you get. You don't get very much. So they're depending on this fund in order to survive. This isn't just his salaries. This is for equipment and everything else we talk about. So anything we can build in the reserves so they're not worrying every year, every time they come up here and going, well, should we do opt-out? Should we do this? Should we do that? Some of that is put back on them, I understand. But their budget's $279,000. There's somewhere that I think that we should be able to put some money in every year to this fund because we do believe that it's worthy for us to have in Pennington County. That's part of why we're doing all those other unmandated funds. Am I correct?
Madam Chair.
Maybe I'm wrong.
It says 50,000 from general fund or fire reserve. Can we legally take it out of the general fund?
Don't we have it in this scenario already, taking 50,000 out?
Of the general fund?
Yes.
No.
You're taking it out of the reserves.
We're talking strictly the fire fund right now. And this year they're estimating, I was looking at my worksheet, that they would need $32,309 of what they have in reserves to meet that $279,949 budget.
Which leaves them some reserves.
Which leaves them 30, what did I say that was?
49,000.
So yeah, that leaves them with a 36.65% in reserves.
Which is 49,000 in reserves.
Correct.
No, the 49,000 is the difference to the goal of the 19%.
I'm sorry, that was the 102,594. So if they they're using 32,000 out of reserves, and it would leave them 102,594 in the reserves. So it leaves them about 100,000 in the reserves for any thing that might happen in fire that they need. I don't know who anybody in their departments for any emergency management that has reserves that can live with 100,000 just in case they need that for equipment or anything else. They do get other funding, as you see, miscellaneous funding of 31,450, but I'll keep saying, to me, for being in the fire board, those reserves need to raise, and I still believe that general fund should help. That's my point. And even if we can return 32,000, whatever, back into the reserves this year, I don't think that's a bad thing. And then, like you guys said, let's start figuring it out. But this year, that's something I don't believe. I think we should replenish it back in.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Drews.
I would agree with that we need to replenish that. We're dealing with over 470 volunteers that are willing to put their life on the line to go out and help provide a very necessary public service. And the cost of this operation, to me, is minimal as compared to benefits that we receive from it. So I think we do have to look at that long-run picture and make sure that we get that properly funded.
So at this point, we are doing scenarios, and it's not something we have to do at this point, but that would be my motion is return, or from general fund, put that 32, did you say that number was?
32,309.
309.
There's a motion on the floor. Are you doing a substitute motion?
What is the?
Moved by Ross Connect and seconded by DeSanto to take it out of fire reserve.
Right.
And nothing was done with that motion.
Okay, so I'll do a substitute on that, the 32,309 to come out of general fund and put back into.
You want a budget for an operating transfer?
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
Any other discussion?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner DeSanto.
One of the reasons that I said this yesterday when Jerome was up here, but I agree with everything you're saying. But I think what we need to do is proactively throughout 2020, from this point forward, actually from 2019, educate the public so that we can do an opt-out, but the public will be behind us and understand why we have to do it. Because if we can present it to them, even if we had statistics to show if we had to close a department down in a certain area because we don't have the money to run it, how is that going to affect those homeowners' insurance, for example? How much is it going to go up per year when they don't have a fire department, within 10 minutes of their house? Then they'll start to see that, hey, we're going to pay for this one way or another. We're either going to pay for it in our insurance premiums, we're going to pay for it in loss of life, or we're going to agree to increase our taxes to cover this expense.
Well, what you got to ask is how much of this expense of 32,309, when you're going to give it from general fund, do other areas that other people put in that they're funding that don't benefit them? So you see where I'm going with, we can say that it should be just the outlining areas, but how many times are we doing stuff that doesn't benefit them and this does? So you can kind of play that both ways and say, well, then maybe we should, on these other funds that they don't use, we should probably put that into other outlining areas because it only benefits city. So you kind of balance some of that with the benefits of what this does for the outlining areas compared to what it does for some of the cities. So I start balancing some of those numbers, and I think 32,000 and keeping these guys running without saying, okay, here's what's going, we're going to go opt out you, because we believe that you guys, you're very important, and so should the people on the outlining. They should give some more taxes. So this is all tax dollars.
Right.
So,
Madam Chair.
it's a give and take, I believe. Commissioner LaCroix.
You know, I don't disagree with anything anybody said. I got one question, then I'll do a follow-up, Cindy. One thought is they use their reserve. What happened if an emergency come up? Couldn't the commission, out of their contingency, use their contingency to fill that problem? Okay, that's a yes. The reason why I'm at where I'm at is because I guess I didn't see this coming. I thought there was in the works some things happening that they knew we were having a problem and they were going to work on it, is where I was at. I'm all for, if we're going to do it from our general fund, tell me that. Tell me that 3 months ago before budget hearings are coming and this is happening. I think there was some inaction or misunderstanding that happened, but I'm more than willing to go with they take it out of their reserves this year, just for the fact that I think that puts a little oomph in their step to, there's a problem. We got to do something and we better do it now because the commission's finally taking this serious. Not holding off to the last minute and saying, oh, they'll just give us the money because, you know, what we do is important. I think in the long run, taking that out of the reserve serves two part. Number one, gives the message of urgency that we need to do something. It's not like we don't support them. There is not a one commissioner up here who does not support them. If something does happen, we do have the council contingency that we could pull from.
That's right.
But the only problem with that is they have to come to us and ask, which is not a bad thing. That's.
I respectfully disagree, Commissioner LaCroix, because we do this through funding other departments the same way, and we fund unmandated things the same way. And for me, it's a priority, me personally, that we don't deplete other people's reserves, especially in this case, you're going to deplete firemen's reserves. So we decide that they need to go figure out, because he put 50,000 in, just like I didn't know anybody else's things till today, until we did this budget, that maybe he figured it wrong on the 50,000 in one sense, and the other I kept saying, and have been for the last 2 years, I still think we should put money in this fund. So for me, it's pick and choose. These are county people. These are not city people that we're funding. They're all county. So to me, it's a no-brainer, but we can run through the scenarios on most of these and start saying you can get some grants and some other stuff so we don't have to fund it. But bottom line is, emergency responders, no-brainer for me. So put 32,309 back in their reserves. So discussion?
Call for
Motion on the floor is, if you could, Kara.
32,309 out of the general fund.
Okay, the motion is to take 32,309 out of the general fund for this county fire. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No?
Nay.
Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Ross Connect, did you say aye or no?
I said aye.
Okay,
but I
three.
just want to clarify that. When you said general fund or fire reserves, I was looking at that 32,309 as fire reserve.
It's under, not fire reserves, it would be under general fund.
That's
so
what
you're
I
in the
meant
understand?
the first time, so.
Okay,
I didn't
sorry.
read the category right.
Okay, so the motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, board. Next is too many papers. Library. Reduction and opt-out. I think we kind of answered our question there, if I'm correct.
80,000.
80,000. So I don't know if we need a motion for that, if that's okay. Change in provisional by department. I don't know, where'd Miss Holly go? Okay.
That just kind of looks like informational to me, doesn't it?
It does to me too.
Yeah.
Commissioner LaCroix.
And that's law enforcement increased revenue projections by 207. IT reduced equipment by 150.
Thank you. So Ms.
Okay.
Holly, moving forward,
Yes,
tell me.
Commissioners, your next meeting is July 2nd. I know Cindy won't be here, but I don't know if you want to try and do provisional on the 2nd, or if you just want to schedule for the second meeting in July, knowing that we might have to schedule a special meeting. You just have to have provisional approved by July 30th.
Let's see what Cindy runs through, and then we do, if we need to send out a memo to change, we'll make sure the department heads, because we still need to, remember, work with department heads, Cindy, to bring that forward. So I think all that time is going to be when the next meeting should be after we have those numbers, and maybe it's during
I'm
the
going to go out
next.
on a limb and ask the board to do July 16th so that department heads have time to really go through their numbers. Cindy can have time with, I know she's going to be gone for a week. And then if we have to have a special meeting the end of July, we can do that.
And Miss Cindy, or Miss Holly, I won't be here, I don't think. I might not be here, remember, because we don't know about our flight,
Crap,
so.
we have that trip.
Yeah.
The
Yes, ma'am.
second meeting in July.
So I would like it either, it wouldn't be till either July 9th on a Wednesday, or it would be after that.
Cindy, do you think we can do this by July 2nd?
9th.
We don't have a meeting on the 9th.
No, I meant, can we have a meeting on the 9th?
If you want to schedule a special meeting,
Yes.
we can do that.
See what I'm saying? Because we have a commission meeting on the, is it the 8th or the 7th?
No, July 2nd and July 16th.
I'm thinking, nope, I'm thinking wrong. July 2nd and 16th.
Yes, and you are gone July 16th.
So does July 9th in between their work for you, Miss Cindy? Do you think that would be something workable? It'd be a Wednesday?
July 9th is Tuesday.
That's right.
Good thing I don't know my information.
I've got to travel.
On that Tuesday?
It's 2 weeks to get everybody together and get them to sharpen their pencils.
Miss Cindy, you might want to come to the dais and help us just a little bit. Thank you, Miss Cindy.
Madam Chair, I think if that's the meeting date that the commissioners want to have, then I'll do my darndest to get all the numbers from the departments and get it back to you by that date.
You feel that's reasonable?
2 weeks?
If I get the numbers from them, you betcha, we'll make it happen.
So Gary, tell me, what were you thinking? You're going to be gone on that Tuesday?
On the 9th.
Okay. Is the 9th?
9th, 10th, and 11th, I'm gone.
Okay, how about that Monday?
That might be pushing it a little bit more, because
Okay.
I am gonna be gone that previous week.
Then
If we
after
could move
that-
it to the 10th, the Friday,
What time do we leave? We don't leave on the 10th, Friday. We don't leave till later, do we, Holly? And you're going to be gone
No,
then too,
We're
Gary?
here the 10th.
Now, when's the provisional got to be passed?
by the end of July.
By the end of July. So,
Gary, when are you not gone? Or somebody else? Is anybody else going to be gone in July that we need to worry about?
oh, yes, well, I'll be gone on the weekend, so that's no big deal.
Okay. Gary, any other time you're missing?
No, are you
How
gone
about
on the 12th?
July 18th,
Me and Holly are gone from the 11th through the 16th, but and we're counting on the flight to be back around 11 that day, so I'm going to be late for that meeting.
Does July 18th
would
work?
for me.
18th is what day?
Thursday.
Thursday.
Any conflict, Gary?
No.
18th, Miss Cindy?
That would be fine.
Okay.
Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
So can we make a motion to that effect for a special meeting?
So move for July
Moved
18th.
by LaCroy, second by DeSanto at 9 o'clock. Does that work for everybody still?
About 6 o'clock at night.
18th.
Bite your tongue.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. 18th, Commissioner Ross Connect at 9 o'clock, special meeting, July 18th. Anything else for the good of the board? All right, motion to recess.
So move.
Moved by LaCroy, second by DeSanto. Don't have to.
Let's adjourn these budget hearings.
Okay, let's Motion by LaCroy for adjournment, second by DeSanto. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
Thanks, guys.